Guys and gals, welcome to Show Us, Don't Tell Us here live on the Late Night in the Midlands Network. And we're on from midnight till 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time every Monday night. Guys and gals, if you get a few minutes, man, whenever you can, a $5 donation to L&M Radio Network. That way you'll have access to a boatload of L&M archives. I mean, you thought the library was good. You got to get a load of this stuff, man. It's so extensive. It's unbelievable in regards to information. So we have a very, very, very cool second time appearance for the guest, Peter Kling, which before we Papa introduces him, I'm going to hand this over to Michael Bejas. Michael, man, good heavens, you're feeling better, thank God.
Well, I'll tell you what. How you doing there, Skills? Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you can join us on Show Us, Don't Tell Us. Monday, of course, week before Christmas, so I hope everyone's being safe on out there. But anyway, I'm happy to be here, especially after my recent bout of the flu. I had the flu shot, and I can say it worked because I got it. Anyway, I'm going to turn it on over and welcome one of our wonderful people who guides us along the road here, Papa Bear. How about it?
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Show Us, Don't Tell Us. I am Papa Bear. This is the L&M Radio Network, and it's good to be back again. It's good to hear you guys again. Tonight we've got Peter Kling. Peter Kling has, my God, he's on his hands since the age of 5, I think. If I'm wrong, he'll clarify. But he does a lot on prophecy. It's not the religious end of it. It's the, well, he can explain more of it. You know, I mean, everything falls into the Bible. Everything is falling into prophecy, and it's all coming together, all coming to a head, like right about now. Am I right, Peter?
You are 100% correct, Barry. Thank you for having me on the show again, gentlemen. Hoping everyone's having a good evening and feeling well.
Yes, thanks for being on, Peter. Really appreciate having you. This has got to be the third time we've had you on here, isn't it?
I think second.
Okay.
Whatever. Yes, if you haven't heard me speak, I do use the Bible quite a bit, but I use it in a totally different context than what most people are used to. You'll never hear me spewing anything more than prophecy and science. I don't adhere to any particular dogma or doctrine. As a matter of fact, in order to understand what's in the scriptures, you got to get rid of religion, and you have to apply science. Once you start applying sciences to the scriptures, they give us a different story than what religion has taught us. It starts off, we are made in God's image, and not just that, but we go a little bit further and we find out that our bodies, our physical human bodies, were genetically engineered. And when we look around at this planet that we live on, it holds after genetic engineering and not evolution or the God did it in 7 days. So, time period, 7 of creative days, or 7 creative days or time periods. Time periods don't have to last any specific. They are period of processes took place, and now we are in what is called the rest day of God. We still have some time to go on that rest day, but not just the rest. It's also a time period of cosmic conflict, and the Earth is at the center. Cosmic conflict.
Well, yeah, but that's just it. Are we in that 7th rest day? aren't we near the end of the 6th day, approaching the 7th rest?
Yeah, the 6th day should just be about over, and there's actually when we look at a creative time period, well, a creative day is a little bit different. It's about a 7,000 year time period. When we go back to the time of when Adam's creation was, or
right,
on this planet, it's approximately 6,000 years.
Okay.
And so that's pretty much the time frame that we're in, is that 6,040 year time period, or at the close of that 6,000 year day. Now, in Scripture, we have the rule of peace for 1,000 years before we reach the end of that 7,000 year creative time period. And by the end of that 1,000 years, the human race will be brought back to the condition in which we were purposely created, and that would mean that we would have perfect DNA and would have our spiritual abilities restored, if we want to call it that. But that's it in a nutshell. So yeah, we're in this time period where we are going to change drastically. When I say we, our environment, the way we do business, this whole paradigm of life is going to change.
Right.
And we just had this election, and people are hoping for change. We're going to get it.
Something else I wanted to ask you about was, did you hear about this wave that's coming in through the galaxy that's supposed to be hitting us, I don't know, right about now?
The energy wave.
Yeah, that's supposed to be, I think, the 26th and 27th of this month is when it's supposed to impact us.
Is it? Okay.
I honestly don't know, Barry. That there is so much that's going on the internet, and there's so much disinformation along with information, and we know this. Right. That there's nothing that I can find scripturally as far as any prophecies that talk about this wave coming in. Right. And here's the thing: people have said that this is supposed to be a gamma ray wave. Yeah. Well, if it's a gamma wave radiation that's going to be hitting us, we're pretty much done, because it will destroy all life on Earth bacteria. Okay. I don't doubt that we're having an energy wave of some sort that's coming in.
Right. They say it's like a CME, but it's coming, through the system itself instead of being from the sun.
Yeah, it's coming across the galaxy or across the universe from somewhere. I've not heard where it's supposed to be coming from.
Right.
It's one of those things. This wave is going to hit us. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, what kind of question, I guess? Huh?
My guess is that we're not going to see much from this wave at all, and if it's anything, let's just say I seriously doubt if it's a gamma ray burst.
Right.
We had one that hit the planet or hit the solar system. It was a minor wave, about a week or so, maybe a little bit more, and it actually put enough energy to stop the flow. The sun rays bombard the Earth from one side, and so we have the magnetosphere, which kind of like defends those solar rays off. Well,
this sucks stuff in from the back.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Is that all of a sudden this wave of energy was coming from, was headed toward the sun, not coming with the sun, and it pushed all this solar radiation back, and all of a sudden the magnetosphere was protecting us from the backside of the Earth, where it generally doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was some wave of energy, but obviously it wasn't any gamma ray wave, because we're
right. Well, we've got a good magnetosphere, obviously, because it's shielding us from a lot of unwarranted unwanted stuff out there.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. You know, the sun is a big protector for the whole solar system. It kind of blows a lot of garbage away from us.
Yeah.
But this wave that came in, it certainly didn't blow that away. And do we have another one, a more powerful one? I don't know. To be totally honest with you, I don't know. I don't have any way of proving it. You just have to go by, you know, there's nothing there in prophecy that would indicate that we're going to get hit with anything.
Right.
Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. Probable? No. Highly improbable.
Yeah. All right.
If Earth had ever gotten hit with a gamma ray wave, we wouldn't be here now. So.
Yeah. Well, I just want to get your thoughts on that because I kind of figured you were up on that. You knew what was going on. You've seen the news.
Yeah. You know, it's like I said, they're just forget the fake about, you know, that's being thrown out on CNN and all the other pundit networks.
Oh, the fake news psyop? Yeah. Yeah.
There's
fall for that. Go ahead.
There's a whole set of fake news which we get hit with within the truth movement itself, if you want to call it that.
9/11?
Well, actually, it's purposeful disinformation. I'll give you a good example. It was probably about 5 years ago. I had a Facebook friend sent me these pictures of Mars or the moon, the other, and he said, you know, he's telling me that these rocks are different things, and I said, look, you know, I'm just not one of those people that see critters and rocks on Mars. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, I can sit home and look out and watch the clouds go by and see critters in the clouds too from time to time. But
take your cup and make sure. Check them over and over again. Yeah.
You know, he was insistent that these are there. You know, that these were there, and I said, look, maybe they are, maybe they're not. I'm not an expert. And I sent him to somebody who was an expert. And he took that as an indication that I thought that there was enough information there that he should go talk to an expert about it. And he wrote me back, said, I fooled you. There's nothing there. It's just a bunch of rocks. And I was like, what do you mean you fooled me? And he went, you know, he tried to engage me in this conversation. I just deleted him. That was the end of that. I don't have time for that. And it was maybe about a week or two later, his pictures that he sent me showed up on before its news as life on Mars, proof of life on Mars, and so now he went out and he was hoaxing everybody else.
Oh yeah. I guess he figured if you fell for it, he could push it on a bigger site.
Yeah, and like I said,
here, let's give it to Glenn Kennedy. You know, he'll take it.
Well, that's where he wanted to. You know, he figured if he could get it past me, and it's like I just don't see those things.
Yeah.
And you know,
Glenn will take anything. He's got web. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that's a whole other subject. I don't disparage anybody that's gone on there, and it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I don't put my faith in anybody that's on the internet. There's a lot of good sources out there. There's a lot of people who have a good handle on what's going on. But the majority of the people are clueless, and they're supposed to be experts.
Yeah.
And I'm not right all the time. I guess I have somewhere about an 80% correct average, but dang.
I'm not right.
Let's go play baseball. I'd be in the Hall of Fame without a doubt.
I'm just
right, 80%. I can't. Yeah.
I'm just plain not right. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's the reason why I've been so accurate is understanding the scriptures. And remember, what was that comet? Elenin. Comet Elenin.
Yeah.
Everybody was jumping up and down and saying, "Oh, this is the blue Kachina or the red Kachina. It's the end of the world." So it's like, come on. Here's the thing. I this right away, and people say, "Oh, well, it's like a giant battery that's coming in, and it's going to make the sun discharge and whatnot." And I'm looking at what people are saying, and I'm looking for scriptures that match up, and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Now there are some scriptures that do, it does talk about something that makes the sun go dark and the moon turn to blood.
Right.
But that's at the very end. There are other prophecies which must be fulfilled before we get to that point.
Right.
And without, it's like you can't jump completely across the river. You got to step on the stones in order to get to the other side. And you can't really skip the stones. And those things have been happening. We've seen a lot of things happen already, which indicate that we're close, very close. Revelation chapter 8, I love Revelation chapter 8, and there's certain parts that people will vehemently disagree on, but here's the thing.
Okay.
When you're looking at biblical prophecy, a lot of times it's not what the prophecy says, it's the result of what is being talked about. And the whole thing, and we'll get to that, a good example in just a second, but Revelation 8 talks about 4 different events. It's actually the trumpet blasts, if I recall correctly, that are going off, and it starts off fiery hailstones that hit the earth and causes desertification. Well, we have stones hitting the earth, but in that scripture, it talks about a third of the earth being burned up and being turned to desert. And we certainly see that. And the question is why? What is happening to cause? I mean, we've seen massive wildfires out west for several years. We had the one down south in Gatlinburg this year throughout the Smoky Mountains, and several of the fires down through there were set.
Yeah, wasn't there a motive?
The Smoky?
Wasn't there a motive behind that?
I don't know what the motive is.
Wasn't that to smoke out some people underground?
I have not heard that. I used to live down in this area years ago, and to set the Smoky Mountains on fire that's a chore.
Yeah, Papa,
Well, yeah.
Why don't you toss that one out there? What you were explaining to me earlier, man?
Yeah, from what I gather, with all the stupid stuff I hear, that those were set deliberately to flush out some people from underground life, if you will. Okay.
Wow, that's a far stretch, but
well, of course we've been at war down there for a long time, right? Wasn't it back in the late '90s when we had a problem out there when we were boring holes and what was his name? Schneider, right? Eric Schneider.
You're talking about the fracking?
No, he got his fingers blown off. Alien encounters. We've been at war with those people for a while, and actually there seems to be some activity underneath the Denver airport.
Well, the Denver airport's a whole different kettle of fish. Barry, here's the thing, was when I was living in western North Carolina in the Smoky Mountains in my teen years is when I had alien contact, and the Smoky Mountains have always been a hot spot for UFOs and aliens.
Right.
And just, of all places, I wasn't taken to a UFO, I was taken underground.
Right.
So there might be some legitimacy there. I honestly don't know.
Okay.
It's very possible. I know that there are cave systems throughout the Smoky Mountains, but they're not big systems. It's not like the Luray Caverns or anything like that.
Well, and this brings me back to the Nephilim, if you will, or the fallen angels that were cast from heaven, right?
Well, we have a couple
into the earth.
Yeah,
and
we have
of course
a couple
they
of
still
different
reside
groups
here somewhere, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of different groups of we'll call angelic life forms or fallen angels or archons, however you want to classify them.
Okay.
The group that is talked about in the book of Genesis and the book of Enoch, which the Watchers I'm now talking about, which left their place they were to watch over the development of mankind. They were kind of like mankind's guardian angels.
Yeah.
Only they left their position, or that their assignment essentially, and they started cohabitating with women, and they impregnated, as the scripture says. They saw that women were becoming numerous and that they were good looking, and they went taking wives for themselves, all whom they chose.
Yeah.
So they created this offspring, which we know as Nephilim. So Nephilim is actually part human, or was part human and part non-human, and they grew to literally monstrous sizes. The Book of Enoch says that these things were somewhere between 75 and, depending on the measurement, it would equal between 75 and 150 feet tall.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So these are giants. If you go, remember the movie Jason and the Argonauts when they came upon the Cyclops?
No.
Yes.
Okay, that's what we're talking about. This huge human-like creature that literally ate people. Picked them up like, that they were a Barbie or Ken doll or G.I. Joe doll, and just chomped them down. Allegedly, how bad, and when you read the account, it says that God, in Genesis, it says God felt in his heart that he even created man because things had gotten so bad. When we look around the earth today, we don't have the Nephilim, but wow. We are in a situation where he has to be approaching that same point, that he feels badly that he created man, especially when you look at what's going on with the child trafficking and human sacrifice and satanic worship.
If he's just, if that's just coming to mind now, he's a very patient guy, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, without a doubt. But you see, there's a time. What is actually happening, what most people, nobody talks about this. Nobody talks about this. The situation that we are in, the reality of the situation that we are in, is that this is a cosmic judicial hearing or judgment that's going on. Earth is being beta tested.
Yeah.
And it's been being beta tested from the time of the eating of that back in the Garden of Eden, and people saying, what are you talking about? Let me explain this first. We have several different speeds that our brain operates at.
Yeah.
Typically, we like to be in alpha. Humans love being in alpha. But most of the time, we carry out our everyday life in beta. Beta is a reactionary state of mind. The brain vibrates between 12 and 22, 24 hertz per second, 26 hertz. From there, it jumps into gamma. But typically, we don't get into gamma unless we're in one of those real life-threatening situation. If you've ever been in a car accident and everything seems like it's going in slow motion, your brain's in gamma.
Yeah.
But typically that we don't live in gamma. When you're in gamma, both hemispheres are operating like at full speed, and you're just sucking everything in. And you can't turn around and function very well for very long in gamma because your brain would overheat and you pass out. The only life forms on this planet that think in gamma are dolphins.
Okay.
Anyway, so
I was going to say, cool. You got to teach me how to do that. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, you drop back. Let's drop back down into beta.
Yeah.
Beta is the part of the brain, or the speed of the brain, where the fight and flight response is. In other words, we can either start a fight in beta, or we can defend ourselves or run away from a fight in beta.
Right.
But it's a reactionary state. If you're driving to work in the morning rush hour, you better be in beta because you got to react to the cars around you. If you're not, there's going to be a pileup, I promise.
Yeah.
But when we get home, we sit back, we relax, maybe turn on the TV, maybe have something to drink, whatever the case is. We relax, we calm down, and we go into alpha. We might daydream about the day, think about the different things that happen throughout the day, or maybe, we're planning for a vacation or something. We picture and we visualize these things. That is done in alpha. When we pray, and meditate, we do that in alpha. When we make love, we do that in alpha. Now, we go back to the scripture after Eve was genetically engineered, and she was genetically engineered. You look at that, it's Genesis 2:21 through 23,
right,
where it says, God says that it's not good for the man to be alone. I'm going to create a helper, make a helper for him. So he causes the sleep to fall over the man. It's like you would in an operation.
Yeah.
He opens up the flesh.
Anesthesia.
He removes a rib, closes the flesh, and it says this. It's an operation that's going on there. And he says he takes the rib and he proceeds to make a woman out of it and brings her before the man. And what does the man say? At last. This is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. This one was taken from man. I shall call her woman. Adam knew that Eve was his cloned twin sister. She was genetically engineered.
Yeah.
And he knew it. And the account says that they were naked. Well, if they were naked, they both had to be an alpha.
Yeah.
However, after they eat this, they have a state change. And where does it take them? Well, we know it had to take them out of alpha and into beta. Why? Because after they clothed themselves with leaves, they heard God's voice and they became afraid. That's a beta response. And what did they do? They fled. They hid themselves. A beta response.
Yeah. Flight.
So here the Earth is being beta tested. Now people say, well, what do you mean? The worst thing you can possibly do is give a free will life form. We all have free will. We can do whatever it is that we want to do. We may suffer the consequences of doing those things, though.
Mm-hmm.
But here, you've got a planet with 7 billion, how many 100 million people on it. We all have free will, and we can all start a fight with each other.
Yeah.
We can all make peace with each other too.
Right.
You see,
I like that option.
Yeah. You see, with that beta response, we are just as likely to sit down and fight with somebody as we are to sit down and be at peace with them. And it's very easy to get riled over the smallest things, which may not really matter in life.
Right.
Like, Hillary didn't win. It's not the end of the world that Hillary didn't become president. As a matter of fact, it's probably a better thing that she didn't, because we'll be more free for a longer amount of time.
Shut your mouth.
I'm going to mention when Obama made it in his round one. Did you see us protest?
Hey.
No,
because we had to go to work the next day.
You know what?
That was pretty good. I like that. No, we all had jobs and had to work the next day. Here we are 8 years later. It's like trying to eke a living out working in the coal mines.
Well,
and they want to shut the coal mines down.
With all that complaining we did about Obama, nothing changed. As a matter of fact, we made it through the 8-year slide there. I'm surprised it went 8 years, but
well,
we've got some.
That I was wrong about was Obama's presidency. By the end of his presidency, we would see our.
Well,
I really thought we would see the paradigm shift, and the reason why is because of everything that he did in the last, or didn't do in the last 8 years. I knew he would bring us to the brink. I knew we would have race riots. I knew the country would be ripped in half. I just thought we'd be further down along the line.
Divide and conquer, that's the idea. So now they're going to take this currency collapse or reset or whatever you want to call it, and they're going to drop that in what's his name's lap, Trump's lap.
Yep.
All right, and they're going to say, oh yeah, big businessman. Oh yeah, you know what? You bankrupt the country. You did that, brother. That's what they're going to say. And of course, the people are going to fall for it, because, well, they really aren't that smart, Well, I hate to say that about the people, but
no, you don't.
I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, come on, I look at Facebook every day.
That goes for everybody except for those people who are listening to this show. If you're listening
yeah.
to this show,
Yeah.
you are not in the 10%, not in the 5%, but in the 1% of people who actually have a clue about what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Kudos to you. Thanks for listening.
Here's a little interesting thing, and it's like, what has happened already? Why aren't we further down along the path? How come we see these years flipping by, and it's like, man, do I have to keep on waiting for the next prophecy? It's like they're taking forever. Well, wait a second.
Well, they're getting pretty frequent now.
Yeah, and not just that, but there's something else that a major factor in this. This is about 5 years ago. I had read some work that was done by a German physicist, and he made the claim that our days were no longer 24 hours. They were 16 hours and change.
Right.
So essentially, we lost a third of the days.
Yeah.
Now, you might be saying,
too.
well, how is that possible? That's a good question. How is it possible?
Yeah, based on what? Based on what logic was that?
He did it based on a set of calculated algorithms that he came up with to calculate that we were actually that our day had actually decreased. Now, when we think of it, we say, oh well, that's impossible. No, it's not impossible. Time is a variant or a variable across all the dimensions. And what changes time? Mass. Cosmic mass changes time. So now, is there something massive that might be increasing the day or speeding up our days, speeding up the actual movement of the solar system?
Yeah, the expansive solar
it's
system.
possible. So, we might be short here a few years based on the fact, and it's interesting because the Bible says in the last days things will be speeded up. Well, the day seems to have been sped up. People say that there's just not enough hours in the day. I can't get everything accomplished.
And we judge everything by daylight hours anyway. Sunrise, sunset.
Couldn't you interpret that to more as of an awakening than it is a spiritual awakening?
No.
More and more people recognizing.
No, because there's that there are scriptures that indicate that would happen as well. As a matter of fact, when you get to Revelation, the 7th chapter, I believe it's the 9th verse. Yeah, I believe it's the 9th verse, where it talks about out of all the nations there would be a great crowd of people that no man could number that would survive this paradigm change. So that would be an indication of a large group of people waking up. If there was a number that no man could number that goes through the paradigm change, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
And so the more people that become aware, the more people wake up.
Now, this paradigm change, that's like a physical thing. It's like...
Yeah, it's going to get very physical.
Like I've talked about in the past, frequency response or detection or what have you.
Well,
perception.
From the best that I could gather, it's going to be. This is going to be a combination of a couple of things, but it's going to mostly be centered right around a Nibiru event.
Right.
Whether this planet or this brown dwarf star or whatever it is that's coming in, and by everything that I have heard, it seems most likely that it's a brown dwarf this way.
Brown dwarf. Okay.
Yeah. There's brown dwarf stars are essentially stars in their last phase of life. They're mostly
out.
Iron. Yeah, and they're mostly iron. That's the last stage. On a brown dwarf star, it literally rains iron.
Really?
And there's iron oxide or essentially rust in its trail, so it blows off a lot of iron oxide, and it would have the appearance of, guess what, a sun with wings,
Right.
or a planet with wings. And there's also supposed to be a group
Uh-oh.
of satellites or moons that comes through.
I
Now,
lost
exactly
it.
where
Say
it
that again.
passes.
There's supposed to be a what? I'm sorry.
It also has its own group of planetoids or moons that orbit around it. So
Right,
it's not
yeah.
just a brown dwarf star by
Right. Now, from what I read about
it's
it,
with
I don't know if you can hear me now, but from what I read about it, it's got like 3 planets or something like that, or 4 planets, and one of them has a moon or something like that.
I'm not sure about the planets and having moons, but around this red dwarf star, it's got its own set of planets or its own set of moons. So it does have stuff in orbit around it,
Right.
and it blows off us. So when this thing passes, it seems like it would fit a brown dwarf star seems like a description of what passes us according to prophecy.
Right.
Revelation, the 6th chapter, verses 12 through 17, gives us the most accurate report. It says that the sun would be made dark as black sackcloth of hair, and the moon would become red as blood. The stars would fall from heaven like unripe fig trees being blown off of a tree in a high wind. It says that the heavens would be rolled up like a scroll, so something is going to be blocking out our view of what's ever there.
Yeah, it's a
We're going to
third
see a
part
lot
of
of
it.
particulate matter. Excuse me?
It says a third part of it. After the fourth angel sounded, the third part of the sun was smitten, the third part of the moon, the third part of the stars. So as the third part of them was darkened, the day not shone for a third part of it, and likewise the night. And I heard the angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of earth, by reason of other voices of trumpet, of the 3 angels, which yet are to be sound.
Okay, what verse are you reading?
That was 12 and 13 on 8, because it said that...
Okay, go to Revelation chapter 6 and read verse 12.
Yeah, because it's got but it had the name of the moon, which was called Wormwood.
Now, when we go, that's in Revelation. Yeah, that's in Revelation 8. Revelation 8, 10, and 11, I believe that it talks about wormwood. Revelation 8 now, since you brought it up, I'll talk about this for a second. We go to, I mentioned, it's in Revelation chapter 8, which talks about a third of this earth being burned up. And that's what we see with, NASA actually has a satellite that keeps track of all the forest fires, and they do month over month, year over year. And you can see it literally looks like a third of the earth is being burned up. The next one, see if anybody can picture this. John says, this is Revelation 8, 8, and 9. John says, I saw something like a burning mountain being thrown into the sea. And a third of the sea became as the blood of a dead man, and a third of the souls in the sea died, and a third of the boats were wrecked. What John doesn't tell us is that BP and Halliburton got blamed for it, and that is the Gulf oil disaster. Okay. The next one is wormwood. It says that a star falls from heaven, and all of a sudden people think, oh, meteorite. But wait a minute, this is why I said you have to look at what the prophecy says. It says a star falls from heaven, and where does it land? It lands on a third of the waters, the fountains and the rivers, the drinking water of the earth. And it says that it makes this water bitter like wormwood, and the men drink it and die. Well, the
almost
Russian...
like red tide.
Fukushima.
Almost like red tide.
Well, here's the thing. The Russian name for wormwood is Chernobyl.
Right.
Yeah. Now, what's bigger than Chernobyl? Fukushima. It is now even the headline news, if you want to call it that, but the news agencies are reporting, and we've known this already. It's nothing new. It's been on it's happened well over a year ago, if not 2 years ago. that radioactive isotopes from Fukushima are now being picked up on the West Coast.
Right.
You go surfing in the California surf, and you're surfing in Fukushima radiation.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, you know, even a buddy of mine that would go out to Hawaii, and he was a diver. He says, the coral reefs are dead, man. I mean, and it's still pissing thousands of gallons per day, and it's been going on for 5 years, man.
Right.
You know, and then who do they have to hire not to keep it under cap, because it's not to half-ass so-called control that to a certain extent, are bums that they hire off the street, and they send them in there to whatever, take care of, so it doesn't get worse. It's already a nightmare, so that it doesn't become an unbelievable nightmare. And they hire these
It
people,
already
and
is an unbelievable nightmare. People just don't realize it.
Yeah, well, yeah. And all they can do is tell these guys, well, we'll protect the rest of your family for the longest period of time, and just bus load them in there, one right after the other. Bang, 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 bang. And that's why I told my son, Michael, who's out in Hawaii, and he's getting the heck out of there come March, out of Hawaii. I says, you got to go, man. You got to get out of there.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. It was 2 years after, actually a year and a half after Fukushima, that French scientists were taking samples around America, and then they expanded it, but it was throughout America. And every sample that they had taken in the United States was contaminated with Fukushima radiation. Now, if you're wondering how they can tell, it's the actual fingerprint of the MOX fuel. They loaded an old reactor full of MOX fuel. MOX is the depleted, is not the depleted uranium. MOX fuel is made up of plutonium from decommissioned atomic weapons, nuclear weapons. And so essentially they're putting a super hot fuel into an old reactor. On a supercharger with a nitro kit. You hit it one too many times, you're going to blow the engine. It's just that simple, and that's exactly what they did. They blew the engine. And they've got all three reactors that are in total meltdown. And that's the issue. And something that was the same things that were said by the scientists that the week that Fukushima happened, the report that I read has been 100% correct. Fukushima is going to wind up burning for another 35 years because they don't have the technology, or so they say. It's not available. Whether the military has anything or not, I don't know. But therein, Fukushima is just one of over 400 nuclear plants on this planet that if we have a Nibiru event, it doesn't even have to be a Nibiru event. It could be a solar flare. It could be a solar flare that wipes out that takes down the grid, and more than likely it will be. If we don't get this red dwarf that swings by, we will have sooner or later a solar flare that knocks out the electric grid.
Like that wave that's coming in?
It's not yet, Barry. It's not yet. I don't know if there's going to be anything that's going to be done with this wave that's coming in.
Right.
But what we see from, this is lined up with the end prophecy of Armageddon, which is God's war.
Right.
What's the first? Let's go back to Arnold Schwarzkopf. What did he used shock and awe? What was the first thing he wanted to do? First thing he wanted to do is make Saddam Hussein's troops blind and deaf. He took out their communications.
Yeah.
And so what would happen if you took out not just the communications of Earth, but the whole electrical system of Earth? Well, I can tell you what will happen because the government did a study. 90% of the people in the United States would be dead within 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
90% of the population would be dead in 2 years.
Most of your population's in the northern hemisphere, and we're heading right into winter. You forget it. Right?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't worry about it. You prepare for the worst and you pray for the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people aren't prepared like they were years ago to where, okay, what would you do? They have no clue. I don't think they're prepared at all. I mean, you're gonna throw in the rioting, throw in neighbors robbing neighbors, everything else, throw in the disease, everything else. That's why it's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the reasons that we headed off grid this past year and started building a homestead off grid. It's going so well that we're working with concrete. When the weather turned, we felt it best to come off the mountain, and it's a good thing we did because it's 16 degrees below up there now.
Is there?
It was last week anyway.
Is there anything about what's going on down at the South Pole? Any of that type of stuff in prophecy? Because I don't know why. One of the listeners asked me that, but I don't know why. But I think that, or I get the feeling that this under or inner world civilization has a major entrance and exit there. You with me, Peter?
Oh, sorry. My microphone. Here's the thing. When I was looking at a model, people have gone down this flat Earth path, and we're not going to go down there tonight. But when I started my own research, I came across this fantastic model that NASA had set up within. I guess they were doing experiments with water.
Yeah.
And get about 25 cc's of water to rotate. They started spinning it, and they put air bubbles in it before they started to rotate it. Actually, they put an Alka-Seltzer in it.
Okay.
Or a little piece. They did several experiments. But the interesting thing is that with all these little air bubbles inside the sphere, when it was spinning, the air bubbles all coalesced around the axis. In other words, all the air in the sphere just kind of floating around as this was spinning, they all went right along where the poles would be. And so if you went from one end to the other, there was essentially a little tiny shaft of it that was filled with air bubbles.
Okay.
So we know, based on electromagnetism, very simple law of physics, that the Earth cannot possibly be flat. It's got to be spherical.
Right.
Just because of that electromagnetism.
Is summer down under?
And that's what the model shows. But the model shows that there's also an air along the axis. So if the Earth had air and it's spinning, we know it's spinning, then it's very possible that from pole to pole could all be hollow or kind of honeycombed.
Yeah.
Which brings us now back, well, that's where the ice caps are, where they sealed off for a purpose. Were you talking about these fallen angels?
Uh-oh.
And that dimension could be right within the Earth itself.
Well, unless the International Space Station cameras are full of crap, rumor has it, and I've seen it, it looks pretty freaking round to me. Yeah. I see all kinds of radius, unless, of course, they're feeding us a bag of crap.
Like I said, the Southern Hemisphere is going into summer, and their days are getting longer. I rest my case.
I was 19 years old, went on a cross-country trip. We literally drove from Florida to British Columbia. And when we left, we started heading toward, we were heading toward Denver on Route 80. And it was a day and a half trip, but anyway, I could swear that you could see it was flat as a pancake. However, it was about an hour and a half or so. We were to Colorado, maybe, and I started on the horizon to the southwest. So I took out my camera, put on the telephoto lens, looked down. This little bump toward the southwest, and as we're driving, this bump is getting bigger and bigger, and I looked through the lens again, and I was like, that's got to be Pike Peak. And we're getting closer and closer, and all of a sudden you can see all the smaller peaks underneath it going across the horizon. And we're getting close now. The peaks look like mountains, and guess what? You can start to see the city's, the Denver city skyline. And then before
Yeah.
right into. So I got to see the curvature of the Earth, and with the telephoto lens, Pikes Peak was still a little bump. So if the Earth was flat, I should have seen the whole thing. I should have been able to see the Rocky Mountains. I should have been able to see the city of Denver, and I couldn't. Why?
Right.
Because they were all below the horizon.
That's right. Yeah. Hey,
I was 19 years old. This isn't rocket science,
no,
but it does take a little science and a little intelligence.
Well, I was in the Navy, and they taught us that where the sky meets the water is 20 miles away. Period. End of story.
You know, and we're 20 miles away, and we're sitting on a planet which at the equator is 6,000 miles in diameter.
Right.
Of course, it's going to seem flat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You just don't. But you know, when you're anybody, if you ever have any real issues about flat Earth and you want to know the truth, drive from St. Louis to Denver. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The Earth is round.
And then you get the brainiacs out there to say, this country built a bridge and they didn't allow for curvature, and it's like, hello, how many bridges do I see? I mean,
yeah,
they didn't allow for what? They didn't allow for what? Okay. Yeah, okay.
I don't know.
Back to sleep.
Was with the curvature of the Earth in mind. I think it's actually 10 centimeters wider at the top than it is at the bottom.
Yeah.
They had to offset it slightly to make up for the curvature of the Earth. It's like, seriously? Yeah, that much that they had to engineer for.
Yeah.
So, believe what you want. It doesn't affect my day, but sooner or later, it's going to affect yours.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah, believe what you want. You will anyway.
Yeah, I'm not here to, I'm not going to have an argument with somebody over whether, the Earth. I already know the answer to that question. I don't have to convince anybody.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Oh yeah, let's engage in that. Yeah.
Let's go right back to the aliens. After the Watchers came to Earth, we had this global flood. And then after the global flood, we have, you have the story of Noah. By the time we get to his great-grandson Nimrod builds a group of cities, not just one, and they stretch essentially from, they take up the area. His kingdom was the area of Iraq and Syria. He built everything from Babylon, which is Baghdad, is now, all the way right up to the Mediterranean. And that Nineveh was, I think, the westernmost city in his Nineveh was you read the history of Nineveh, rough people.
Yeah.
They would literally take hooks, pull their captives to battle, whoever was left, together on a chain, right through their skin. And they would march them all
sick,
where they would start dismembering it, start building piles out of body parts.
Yeah.
They would literally dismember their captive and build piles of body parts. Pretty sick people.
Yeah,
so you look at what's going on over there today. It's no wonder their descendants will strap a bomb onto their back and get on to go blow themselves up and try to take as many people with them as they could. It was a very brutal society.
Really.
But that's a few hundred, less than 200 years after Noah, we have the story of Nimrod, and there's very little information within the scriptures. You have to turn to history. When we turn and look at the Sumerian culture through history, what's the first thing we run into? The Anunnaki.
Yeah.
Now, the chief Anunnaki god is Anu. Anu is the god over a flat, domed earth.
Yeah.
So, all the flat earthers out there, you're all being duped into being Anunnaki worshippers or Anu worshippers.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. Now, Anu is the same god as Marduk. Marduk is the Babylonian equivalent, and Marduk is supposed to be back here on this planet now and large and in charge. So they say. No way to prove this stuff, but
All right. Yeah.
when we look at Revelation, the 12th chapter, it says it covers something very interesting. It says war broke out in heaven, and the great dragon, Michael battled against the great dragon, and the great dragon and its angels battled with Michael and his angels, and it did not prevail. And a place was not found for them any longer in heaven, and so down to the earth that they were cast. And the devil was cast down having great anger, knowing he had a short amount of time left. And it says he drags a third of the stars with him. These stars are the fallen angels. They held high rank at one time, and they went to the dark side, literally.
Peter,
So, yeah,
why don't you hold that thought and we'll get to it after break here?
sure.
It's time. It's time
Hey,
for
we'll
our
get back
break.
to South America when we come back. I mean, not South America, Antarctica.
All right, yeah, there's an idea. All right, good enough. You're listening to Show Us Don't Tell Us on the L&M Radio Network.
There are days that the red pill is bitter in my stomach, but I can't get it back out. I think because I have to. I speak because I have no choice. I walk through this dark age we're in with open eyes. Listen to Open Eyes on LateNightInTheMidlands.com. And together, maybe we won't stumble and fall.
The L&M Radio Network offers a chat room for you, the listener, to connect interested in the topics and guests that the L&M Radio Network brings to you. During the live shows, the hosts will even visit the chat room and chat with you, the listener. Click on the big red Chat and Listen button of the website and join us. No subscription is needed at either lnmradionetwork.com or latenightinthemidlands.com.
Subscribe to Late Night in the Midlands, you ask? Well, I'll tell you why. Late Night in the Midlands covers everything, and through the thousands of expert guests who have joined Michael Vera on his show, come pieces of the big puzzle, which started many years ago. Michael and his guests reveal information dating back to the beginning of time. To this very moment, Michael Vera not only brings you the best guests with the best information, but Michael is not afraid to call out those who are less than honest. You see, in this day and age, we need a radio show we can count on and a radio host we can trust to expose the truth one show at a time. So become a late nighter and subscribe now. Talk radio like no other. Late Night in the Midlands. The truth back to talk radio.
Do you need toner for your Epson, Hewlett-Packard, Canon, Brother, Apple, or Sharp printers? Look no further than Laser Technologies. For over 20 years, they offer the lowest prices on toner on the web. They can also repair your laser printers and toners fast and easy. Staff today at 561-792-9600 or email us at service@laser-technologies.com for all your toner needs. All toner is shipped nationwide. Why wait? Get the lowest prices on toner. Call or email us today.
There is a better radio show, beyond that which is known to the people. It is a radio show more informative than others, and as timeless as infinity. It is the equilibrium dark between the sheeple and the paranormal, and it is heard at the base of man's ignorance and at the summit of his knowledge. This is the imagination, a show we call The Secret Teachings.
You don't know what you're going to find. You don't know what you're going to see. All that good stuff. Welcome back to Show Us, Don't Tell Us on the L&M Radio Network. I'm Papa Bear. And, of course, tonight we've got Peter Kling with us. And before we hit the break, we were talking about Antarctica. We kind of skipped over. We kind of glossed over it. But anyway, let's pick up on Antarctica if we could.
Sure. Well, a lot of people know that Buzz Aldrin just had to be removed from Antarctica for medical reasons. We don't know what those medical reasons actually were. And while he was being transported, he tweeted that there was nothing but pure evil there. And then he took the tweet down, or somebody took the tweet down.
Right.
And there was never anything mentioned more about this. When we start looking at the history of Antarctica, there's an anomaly which is out there, which is known as the Perry-Reese map, which was done somewhere in the 15th century, if I recall, or the 1500s. And the map shows Africa, South America, and Antarctica. And the interesting thing, the part of Antarctica that's that's shown on this map, it shows the coastline without ice.
Okay.
So the map, the knowledge from this map, and as a matter of fact, the military has said that this map this work had to be done prior to Antarctica having ice on it. It was so accurate they couldn't believe it.
Right.
So how do you turn around and get a 600-year-old map of Antarctica without the ice?
Right.
What, 200 years before Antarctica, 300 years before Antarctica was discovered? Seriously?
Yeah.
You know? It's
right. Now,
okay.
Now they're finding pyramids down there, right?
Yes. Now, here's the thing. There are pyramids all over.
Well, yeah, there are pyramids underwater and all kinds of places. They're under
Yep.
grass. God, you'll find them in Ohio. They call them domes.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter where Bosnia they found pyramids. In naturally we know the Pyramid of Giza, but there are pyramids within South America, within Central America. There's pyramids all over the place. Pyramids we believe that pyramids on Mars, and now they're finding pyramids in South America. Why should we be surprised? One thing we know for sure is that Earth history is not what we're taught in school.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. Earth history is based on a pack of lies and suppositions.
Right.
It's what they think and any scientist worth his salt will tell you that it's all hypothesis. It's what they believe based on the evidence.
Yeah, well, whoever wins the war gets to write the history books, right?
Exactly.
So there you go.
Yeah, and what you find today is that academia is much like the church was back in the 1500s.
Yeah.
It's like back then, the earth was flat and at the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Sun rotated around the earth. For the earth to rotate around the sun, that was heresy.
Yeah, right.
So
heresy.
You have people like Copernicus and Galileo that were a hair away from being excommunicated from the church and having to spend the rest of their lives burning in hell.
Yeah.
Which is a fallacy in its own sense, but regardless, that's what they were held over with. And it's the same thing with academia today. To get anything changed in academia, you have to be able to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
And, if I walked in to think about this, if I walked into academia and packed the whole Museum of Natural History in my pocket and said, look at this, and went to all the different specimens that they have and said, this is a product of genetic engineering. We have evidence within the scriptures. It says the same thing. We go back to the Anunnaki. They say the same thing. We genetically engineered you. Yeah. And then you go to the Federation of Galactic Federation of Light, and they say the same thing. We genetically engineered you.
Yeah.
It's like, they would still say, no, we evolved. And yet evolution is a theory.
Well,
it's not fact. It's a theory. And genetic engineering makes much more sense. But academia will never, ever pick that teaching up because now they have to explain who the genetic engineers are.
Yeah.
Peter, here's one for you. Now, do you believe that St. Brendan had found the United States before Christopher Columbus?
Evidence
St. Brendan goes back a couple further years. About 1,000.
Yeah, I was just going to say evidence would show that the United States was inhabited long before. Well, how did the Indians get here? How did the Native Americans get here?
I'm convinced. I might be
were they?
wrong, but I think that they came across the Bering Strait. Those are my thoughts.
It's possible, but more than likely not. They were probably seafarers.
Or they crossed at the North Pole.
That could be too. Now here's another question: how do you get cuneiform writing? How do they find cuneiform writing in South America?
Well, would you agree or believe at one point that if you fit parts of the Earth together, that they do mold together?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Oh yeah.
So at that time, people did travel back and forth, okay, and they did go to different areas, and I'm sure that they transferred writings from one area to other writings, or and had exchanges.
Cuneiform writing takes us back 4,000 years.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's been artifacts found up the Mississippi River, and also supposedly in the Grand Canyon. There's supposed to be a place where they found Egyptian artifacts. Hence, you have different places along the Mississippi River with Egyptian names, like Memphis. So, you go back to the Cherokee Indians. Cherokee Indians are very interesting. They're the only American Indian tribe that believed in a single god. They have 7 clans. They adopted the number 7 as the perfect or spiritual number 7. They're the only Indian tribe to have a written language. And it's believed that they got this knowledge from Hebrews that traveled along with the name of the culture, the Phoenicians, that traveled along with the Phoenicians and were exploring America. At least that's what one theory is, because they've all the similarities. Yeah. So how do you wind up with foreign objects or objects from the Middle East in America if you didn't have people from the Middle East traveling here 2,000, 3,000 years ago?
Damn Hebes leaving their stuff laying around.
Like I said, there's just so much. If it doesn't fit the accepted belief, they throw it out. They don't accept it. That's the issue with academia. Now, going back to Antarctica, we've got this Perry Reese map.
Yeah.
And we don't know anything about Antarctica for a really long time.
Right.
Pretty much up until the Germans start exploring Antarctica. And by all their records, it seems that they have found something there, and that most likely they did start building an underground base.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Okay.
It was supposed to be a place for Hitler to escape to, and it was supposed to be a place where they could rebuild. Now,
Argentina?
We go.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Argentina. Argentina seems to be where. I can't remember that one colonel's name, but he was the colonel that was a German colonel in charge of all of the secret weaponry.
Yeah.
That Germany was working on. And when we start looking in the archives, from what we can find, the Germans were a lot further along in building UFOs than anything that we are led to believe. They actually had working models, which were working prototypes, which were in use.
The Bell.
And they were observed. A UFO was observed during the Battle of Kursk, and it's believed, I believe it was Battle of Kursk, it was believed to be a German UFO.
Yeah, they made the Bell, right?
Yes.
Well, what's interesting is I recall my father, he was in over there in Germany, Holland, and France, 42 to 45, Arms 45, 7th Armored Division, driving a tank. And he recalls the first time his boys in that division had seen a jet in their entire life. And all of a sudden, man, and it was German made, and they were like, what was that? You know? But I'm assuming that, obviously it wasn't equipped with anything. It was just a test flight or whatever. And when that thing went over, it caught everybody's attention. It's like, what was that?
Yeah.
My old man told me he watched that thing fly over, and he says, what in the hell was that, man? All the boys looked at each other. They were scratching their asses.
I remember a story that my parents used to own the corner grocery store. One of the customers that we came in told the story. He was he was on a B-17. He was a gunner on a B-17, and he said the first time that they saw the Messerschmitt, was it 242, 262, whatever it was. The first time that he saw jet aircraft, he said they were flying in formation, and these jets came in. They came in. They did so much damage, and they left before they even knew what happened. What hit him?
Yeah.
So though, and Hitler stopped the production of the jet by about 18 months. Could you imagine if they would have had that jet a year sooner?
Yeah,
could have very well have changed the outcome of the war. But let's continue in this. When we look deeper into the Nazi regime, it's reported that was a cult, but his generals were, and it was I guess Himmler who was the biggest into the occult, and they drew all of their occult teachings right with them, right down to the child sacrifice. There was a part of their cult was attached to the Vril Society, which grew up out of World War I, and it was because of all the orphans that were left in World War I, was to pick up children and carry out sacrifices with them. But this is all part of the teachings of Aleister Crowley and the psychics of that time and it's trickled right down to today with Pizzagate. But back at that time, they were carrying out these ancient rituals to induce the spirit forces to come out and be with them and give them advantage. And that's pretty much what happened. It was through these child sacrifices and the different rituals that the SS would carry on that they made contact with alien forces, and they started getting advanced technology. So at the end of the war, under Operation Paperclip, we brought all that information back. The official record is a little over 3,000 scientists came over, most Hunter von Braun, and they worked on wrong.
Yeah.
Over 50,000 people, and they brought back everybody from scientists to SS to the Gestapo, and a lot of those people became double agents and spies.
Yeah.
The SS is actually a Vatican organization, and the SS in Germany and the SS, the Secret Service in the United States, reports to the Vatican.
So is Washington, D.C.
Well, yeah, we know it's all cooperation now, but the SS is actually a secret Vatican organization.
Well, who was it? Was it Eichmann, or I'm trying to recall the guy's name that was chasing down the book of the Aries race, you know, and man, he was a thorn and became a thorn in Hitler's side in regards to chasing that down, and I believe the individual that had the original transcript was in Italy, And that was a whole can. After a while, Hitler says, "Look, I'm tired." I think it was Eichmann, man, who was trying to chase that book down, man. I mean, that was like his goal throughout the war, you know. And Hitler says, "Hey, look, I've had enough of your act. You're on your own, man. I'm not cutting deals for you."
Well, Hitler seemed to be very disinterested in the occult. It just wasn't his. You know,
he was Catholic. He grew up Catholic.
Yes, he absolutely did. As a matter of fact, he adopted the swastika for the German flag from the gate on the church that the gate of the church went to as a child.
Yeah, he vowed he was going to use that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's why they got into all these magic, the different symbols. The swastika is actually a sun symbol. It's still used in Buddhism today.
Yeah,
it's their sacred sign. So,
and the one in reverse, I believe, is Indian. Yes.
Yeah, they go both ways. So, regardless, that's they were trying to invoke these extraterrestrials, which apparently they did. When we go back and look at Antarctica now, Antarctica becomes a big unknown. The whole place, the whole continent, is covered with an average of ice 2 miles thick, and you have to figure that there's been no exploration. Got to be huge amounts of, and so you know that every country, every world power is going to try to stake a claim in Antarctica just for the mineral rights.
Oh yeah,
but now we're finding that there's a lot more there. It's not just these pyramids that we're finding, but it also seems like there's openings to underground caves or underground caverns within Antarctica too.
Yeah, well, for a long time that was a no-go zone because there were secret bases down there, and pilots couldn't fly over it because of course, the same reason. And there's some funky stuff going on down there.
Oh, without a doubt. And we're not being told hardly any of it. It's all being kept in very high secretive circles.
They wouldn't do that to us.
Yeah, right. But there's been this extreme interest in Antarctica, and a lot of important people seem to be taking the trip there. Prince Harry went there. I believe John Kerry went there. It's like there's a whole line of celebrities that not Hollywood celebrities, but the rich and powerful, if you want to call it that, in trips to Antarctica. Yeah. So the question is, what's there to see besides penguins and ice?
Yeah.
Now we know that the Russians started drilling into one of the deep lakes there, Lake Vostok.
Yeah.
And that's had its own blowback by itself. I came across some interesting information regarding that. My concern was, here's a lake that's supposed to be has been covered for well over 2 million years, has not had any exposure to the outside world. And my thought was that they are going to drill down and they are going to unleash some sort of hell on this planet.
They're going to molest it somehow.
Well, here's an interesting thing. That this was released by a scientist that was working down there, one of the scientists on the Russian team. The first year, they did get water samples back, and those water samples almost disappeared. It was like this big celebration that they had the first water samples from Vostok, and then you didn't hear anything about it. Nothing.
Huh.
And I used to look, not every day, but virtually every day, for information on what they found.
Yeah.
No information. Okay. Well, as a matter of fact, there's even a picture somewhere with Vladimir Putin holding up a mason jar filled with Vostok water.
Uh-huh.
The second year, I believe this was 2013, they went back and they drilled again.
Yeah.
And then I believe it was the end of January, beginning of February, think it was the end of January. They had for 5 days, the radio communication with the team. And
Okay.
I totally recall this. Well, this doctor that left the team and then started to expose what had happened talked about this 5-day period. They did drill a larger hole, contaminant free. They went down, they actually explored the lake, so he says, and they came across an ancient octopus that had 10 arms, and it literally stalked them. That octopus killed 3 of the team members. So the story goes.
Okay.
He also said that Putin was extremely interested in the samples that they got, and the intention was to weaponize them.
Okay.
So, again,
yeah.
the United States has a team down there that's exploring. They're supposed to have, possibly this year, they're supposed to launch an underwater rover that's supposed to go in another deep water lake. Again, 2 miles under the ice to go explore what's there.
Yeah.
So you got an interesting thing, though. One of the things that was reported, and it wasn't by this one scientist that left the team and went rogue. It was by scientists who were looking at the water samples themselves that were recovered, and they said that there was nothing unusual there. They were expecting to see all this old, this ancient stuff that had evolved into new creatures, and what they found was
same old.
Yeah, the same critters that they find in fresh and salt water today. So it's like, what happened to your evolution theory? Did it just go down the hole? But yeah, there may be much other more dangerous things there than just benign bacteria and sea life.
And I mean, well, you start talking about things like evolution, okay? You've got to look to see how this is defined, I mean, because you know how it goes, right? With the evolution thing, we evolved from prehistoric, a caveman, to who we are today, a modern man. Okay, still men. Yeah, no doubt, we're still men. But there was, a certain amount of evolution that took place. Yeah, I can see evolution in that sense. But this, I mean, I remember looking at my cat saying, "Hey, you're a cat. You're always going to be a cat. You'll never be anything but a cat. You're not going to be a possum. You're not going to be a raccoon. You're not going to be a fox or anything like that. You'll always be a cat.
Oh, what about mutations? What if the cat has a mutation? Well, any mutations in nature that we see usually don't last very long. Predators get them.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Right.
A six-legged giraffe isn't going to run any faster. I guarantee you, he'll be the first to be taken down by a lion.
Right.
Just the way it is.
I'm kind of I'm one of them weird guys. I talk to my animals, and I say things like that to my animals, You're
always going to be a cat.
You're always
going to be a dog.
Yeah, you'll always be. You'll never be anything but, Not that that's a bad thing.
No. Now that will change a little bit based on our environment. I'll give you a good example. If the Earth, the reason why the dinosaurs were so, Earth was a lot less massive at that time. It wasn't the same size as we have today. And if it was smaller, physically smaller or less massive, there would be less gravity.
Well, the atmosphere was heavier, wasn't it? Or lighter, lighter.
Yeah, it may have been lighter, but the actual mass of the Earth would have been less. How do we know it was less? Very simple. Every year, about 100,000 metric tons of space dust and rocks and sand and other stuff enter our atmosphere. So just go back in history.
Yeah.
That means, in 10 years you've got a million tons of space debris.
Sediment. Yeah.
Yeah. So every year the Earth's going to get heavier and heavier, more dense and more
Accumulation.
massive.
Accumulation.
Yep,
if you
and
will,
so
yeah.
eventually, because of the increased mass, we would become shorter and shorter.
Right.
You might see elephants die out naturally. They might become too heavy to live in an Earth a lot more mass than what it has now. And so that's one of the other problems. Science is based on a static Earth, like it's always been this way.
Yeah.
It's not. Everything is constantly changing.
Right. Right.
So to say it was this way 100 million years ago is ludicrous. They don't know that.
Exactly.
And the evidence
Exactly.
would dictate it's not the case. So when it comes to subjects like alien life forms, they ain't going to tell us anything.
Yeah, right?
The Nibiru event, Planet X, they ain't going to tell us anything. A gamma ray burst headed this direction, they ain't going to tell us anything.
No.
No, because we can't handle the truth, and unfortunately, that's true. Humans can't handle the truth. We'd much rather hear a lie.
Well,
Isn't that strange?
we love comforting lies. You know?
Yeah.
Well, like I had heard, Peter, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but what I had heard, which is an interesting thought, an individual had done studies, a lot of studies on a continuous and regular basis. However, what his conclusion was is that there's a pretty good chance. Now, gamma rays fall completely through the Earth on a regular basis. And what I found to be interesting, according to what this particular individual excuse me, had to say, is that, when you conceive a baby, all right, so a woman is having some conception action going on, and this is where the so-called, you can believe it or I don't know, I'm throwing it out there.
Or whatever.
He claims that, what happens is during conception, a gamma ray, which is rare, falls through that conceptive womb at that point in time, which creates your Einsteins, your Michelangelos, and you move along. But at that point of conception, that gamma ray is perfectly timed going through that woman. She could be in the kitchen or out grocery shopping or whatever the frick, wherever she's at, and it hits her at that point in time. I don't know, man. I don't know. Tossing it out there.
I honestly, I wouldn't think, and of course I'm not an expert in gamma rays and what they do to biological life, other than the fact that they use gamma ray machines to irradiate food, and it kills, as long as it's packaged properly, it kills all the bacteria. That food will last forever. Stored properly, it will. You don't have to freeze it. You could turn around and put a chicken in a Mylar bag, stick it through a gamma ray radiation unit, and wait 10 years to go eat that chicken.
Peter, I know in the past we talked about a video called Daniel's Timeline. Did you have a chance to watch that?
Yes, Barry, be honest, it's been so long since I've watched Daniel's Timeline, and that I honestly don't recall the thing. But I know that that according to Daniel's Timeline, we're supposed to be running out of time here next fall. Yeah.
Well, the wedding feast is supposed to take place next fall.
Yes.
Okay. And the bride has to be prepared. So how long does it take to prepare the bride? That's the question.
Well, here's the thing, Barry. The bride's already prepared, or just about prepared.
Well, just about, yeah. But I mean, things have to happen. A lot of things have to happen before the wedding. Am I right?
The bride. When we look at these different prophecies that have to deal with the bride class is the same as the small flock and the 12,000 out of each of the 12 tribes of Judah talked about in Revelation, that being a total of 144,000. Now, they're not all Jews.
Right.
They're not all literally out of the tribe of Judah, out of the tribe of Israel, rather, because Israel as a whole rejected Jesus.
Right.
Now, they could have all been out of as a nation, the Jews rejected Christ. At Pentecost, there was only 120 faithful followers. That out of 3.5 years, Jesus only had 120 faithful followers. I've got over 1,200 on Facebook.
Really? No kidding. Yeah. I think I might have 120. I might have 120 followers.
It's just so even with all the miracles, even with all the healing and the feeding and the preaching and everything that he did, after he was dead, there's only 120 faithful people.
Right.
Now that number grew, but the total number of people that's in the, or humans I should say, that is in the bride class is 144,000. And here's kind of the one of the interesting synchronicities of my life. We don't know what happened. That group of people, those first early followers of Jesus, we know they left Jerusalem before after 67 CE, and most of them fled to Asia Minor. And we can deduce that by the 7 letters that go out to the 7 congregations of Asia Minor, which is essentially the area of Turkey today. And those are the 7 faithful congregations of the early days of, if you want to call it Christianity, but the followers of Jesus. Now, we don't know exactly what happens to them. They kind of vanish after that. Right. We know that Christians are persecuted in Rome and the different stories that go along with it that we've had over the years. But Christianity, or not so much Christianity comes to life. But these followers, the 7 congregations, we don't hear anything about them anymore.
Right.
It seems that they reappeared during the time of the Reformation.
Okay. The
Reformation against the church. Because there's a whole new biblical learning that comes out during that time. And you know, we credit Martin Luther for starting the, and this is where my family comes in. Back during the Reformation, my family were close friends with Martin Luther, and they actually helped hide him while he was translating the Bible from Latin into German before it was printed on the Gutenberg press.
Right.
For that, we were all excommunicated, and for over 200 years, the church carried out genocide against my family. They murdered us wherever they could find us. So it's interesting, because when I was 4.5 years old, that's when my education in the scriptures started, and it wasn't religious education. It was by people who claimed to be of this same 40 followers, the Brothers of Christ, who keep on appearing and disappearing. Their last time around was a little over 100 years ago.
There were people of what? I'm sorry? You broke up there.
People of this bride class.
Okay.
The last time that they emerged was just over 100 years ago, and the last time that I had any contact with them was when I was 19. But from the time that I was about 4.5 and they started studying the Bible with me up until 19, there was always several of these individuals in my life, and I wasn't related to any of them, at least not that I knew.
Right.
So 2 of the things that were told to me, even religion is a sham. Never get involved in it.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Earth governments. Never get involved in Earth politics.
Okay. So this activity at the South Pole, you don't believe there could be like interworld being activity?
Oh, without a doubt, there more than likely is.
There is.
Because, yeah, I would think so. It's one of the last explored places. And we know we are infested with aliens. We know this by several reasons. Other than personal accounts from people, let's take Pizzagate. What's that all about? Yeah. Child trafficking, child sacrificing,
pedophilia,
and at the highest levels.
Yeah, right.
And when we go beyond that, we know that has been involved in child abuse for years. Right. And this all goes back to the ancient peoples of what was called the Promised Land it goes back to Samaria when they first started this. But the worst people for child sacrifice were the Canaanites.
Right, and we know the Clinton family's been doing coke for years. I mean, they've had coke parties and stuff. As a matter of fact, that's kind of how Clinton operated the laundry. Business money. Yeah, business money. It was never paid back. And he'd have his little parties, and there was always girls there passing out the coke, you know.
I had a friend of mine.
But Bush was in the same. Bush did the same thing. You know,
yeah, they were all doing the same
that
thing.
Bush was doing it up in Oregon. You know.
They were all involved with the same
Romney
thing.
did it in Panama. Okay, I mean, they're all in it. You know, if you legalized all the drugs, all the illegal drugs, if you legalized them all, the banks would go out of business in a week. Because all that laundered money would have to come out. And that would forget it. You'd bankrupt the banks in a week. It would be all over. You don't have to legalize it for 6 months. The banks would be done in no time flat.
Well, let's go back to the Opium Wars.
Afghanistan.
Not the modern day ones. I was to say, no, not the modern ones. Let's back up 100 years. It's said that Queen Victoria made a third of her wealth off of the opium trade. Now, a lot of people hear the Opium Wars and they think, oh, okay, well, what was it? They never look into it.
Yeah.
The Opium Wars started because England had 90% of the populations of Shanghai and Hong Kong addicted to opium.
Right.
And the Chinese emperor didn't want the rest of his country to get contaminated, so he closed the ports.
Okay.
And His Majesty's Royal Navy rolled up and sunk the blockade and opened up the ports and started shipping the opium back in. Okay. But they would pick it up coming out of India, or that area from Western India up through Afghanistan, where it's grown today. 90% of the world's opium comes out of Afghanistan now.
Oh yeah.
And they would pick it up in West India and then bring it around over and deploy it at Hong Kong and Shanghai, and that was where they made their money. Yale University was built on opium money.
Right.
I have to remember, it wasn't illegal back then. So why did they make it illegal? Keep everybody else out of it.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
But tons of money were made in the opium business throughout the 17 and 1800s.
Yeah.
And even more is being made today. I forgot the statistic. It was one in 6 people, I believe, in Pennsylvania is addicted to an opiate.
Really?
Think about that. And they say it starts, according to what the law, we hear ads all the time. Pennsylvania is the 3rd most addicted state in the country. And so we hear ads in Pennsylvania all the time dealing with the opioid problem. And they say, oh, it starts out as prescription pills and then winds up, well, yeah. It starts off as pills. So you have the doctors that are pushing the opioids through the different painkillers. And then when they stop the prescription, now that the person's hooked, what happens? They go out and they look for heroin, which is actually cheaper than the pills.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's one of the biggest problems. Like I mentioned, previously on other shows, our 25-year-old nephew, back in, I believe it was February of this past year, we lost him to heroin, you know. And it's, you go round 1, get saved, round 2, get saved. And all the paramedics and also the policemen have these so-called pens. The magical will save you from dying pens if you're on heroin. And unfortunately, his mother decided to drive him as opposed to call 911, which would have saved him. But it was a little bit too late. Yeah.
Too late for that now.
It's getting bad, man. It's getting really bad in regards to that.
Oh, without a doubt. And, you know, it's just it's an epidemic that was started that hits every family at every level. Well, not almost every family at every level here in the United States. And it's gotten to the point where it's reached epidemic proportions. As I said, Pennsylvania is the third most addicted state in the country. Now, here again, this is all tied in. It's tied into it's a society thing, and it ties in at different levels because these archonic creatures that we have, which are running this planet, fallen angels, aliens, whatever you want to label them as, they love human misery. They absolutely love human misery. That's why some of these sacrificial rituals are so brutal. You know, and yeah. And so the more human misery that they see, the happier they are. They feed off of it. And people might be saying, oh, well, that's not possible. Yep, okay. Well, I can almost guarantee that every person that has some sort of bizarre, crazy, insane life, which ends in a suicide or an opium or a drug addiction or overdose, not everyone, but a large portion of them are because those children or those people were abused as children. The classic target for archonic life forms are sexually or physically abused children who, because they are the easiest to be controlled, and those children grow up with all sorts of psychological problems throughout their life. And what we find, or what I have found in helping people break free from demonic or archonic attack, is they all have the same thing in common: physically or sexually abused as a child. These are people from what you would consider everyday functional families. We're not talking about, you know, people that have had lives of hardship or grew up in ghettos where they were drug infested. These are what would seem to be normal American people. They have bizarre lives that are just filled with drug abuse and sexual abuse all through their adult life. And they are targets, and typically they're controlled by a spouse or a lover that is extremely dominant, overbearing, and physically abusive. And their personal lives will engage in basically sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I had one case that I worked on last year, a very bizarre case, and it tied back into Freemasonry and Opus Dei, right back to the church, interestingly enough.
All right.
But this woman, who was in her 50s now, was sexually abused as a child. Her parents, father was a high-level Freemason. I don't know what degree. Both her parents have passed, but he was a Freemason. Her mother was a member of the Eastern Star, and they left her. Both her parents passed away. They left. She inherited a box with all symbols, Masonic symbols and religious symbols on it. That was her father's work box, all intricately carved in there, along with jewelry and some other things. This woman told me her life, and in one episode, she was at this drunken orgy, and she literally was overtaken by some other personality, and she ran naked 5 miles from where this orgy was back home to the town that she lived in at 2:30 in the morning.
Wow.
She turned into this other person and ran through the streets naked.
Really?
As an adult. Not
Wow.
not as a child or a teenager, but in her adult life. I guess she was in her 30s when this happened.
Some sort of regression of some sort. Thank God my kids don't fall into that category, man.
And we could trace everything right back to that box. Once I found out that the box existed, and it was actually a set of circumstances where she was making good progress, and all of a sudden, bang! She just
like a so-called Ouija board. Yeah.
Ouija boards are usually the entry level the entry-level tools that people will use, because get them as kids, teenagers, and they'll ask the board questions, and then, man, you talk to somebody who's had a Ouija board and has gotten involved in it, and they will tell you, do not touch a Ouija board.
Yeah. Hey, are you familiar with Stephen Greer?
I've heard the name. Refresh my memory.
Stephen Greer worked with the government. He was
a whistleblower. Was a whistleblower, isn't he?
Yeah, part of the Disclosure Project with UFOs.
Okay. Yep.
All right. Well, he was talking about a false flag alien invasion. All right, and there would be both kinds of. I don't know. There'd be some terrestrial beings and some government beings, all right? And you can tell the difference in the craft by if the craft has seams, it's ours. If it's seamless, it's extraterrestrial. So, and he says, but there's going to be a false flag event. It's going to appear to be catastrophic or something, but don't let them fool you.
Well, Carol Rosen said the same thing about said the same thing, and she got her information from Warner von Braun, who said that the last card that they would play would be the alien card.
Right, and that's the one that's coming up, which should be coming up. According to prophecy, it should be coming up anytime now. I expect
possibly the end of next year, the end of 2017 at the marriage feast. Going back to this feast,
that was November. November 5th.
That you had brought up. This group of people that is taken from the earth, and a lot of them have already. I have to believe the vast majority of them are gone. They can't be any more than a couple thousand left, if that, because they would all be close to 100, if not more.
Okay.
So how many people are on the planet that are 100 years old?
Not many.
No. So
is Soros still alive?
Kirk Douglas.
Rumor is Soros is dead. I don't know. But
no, he's not. And there was a rumor that David Rockefeller, and one of the Rothschilds died too. No, they're both alive.
They are. Okay.
So all three of them are still around. Somebody there was a bishop or a cardinal, I posted on Facebook, I forgot his name, but he was mentioned in Benjamin Fulford's last article as dying, and he is a member of Opus Dei who was trying to, my guess is that he was behind the Clinton campaign from the beginning.
Yeah, but it was Fulford that reported those 3 deaths too. So
he said that the last 2 Rockefeller and Rockefeller and Rothschild hadn't been confirmed yet.
Okay.
And I went and tried to suss that out. Rockefeller is actually giving a speech somewhere, or supposed to be giving a speech somewhere here within the next couple of days.
Okay.
So he's still kicking. Rothschild, I couldn't find any information on. The cardinal that was involved, he was a high-ranking Jesuit that was a member of Opus Dei, and according to Fulford, he was working on getting the election overthrown. And
he got taken out, right?
That's what the claim was.
They said it was natural causes. That's what they said,
But here again, and this is something that I had said back in the spring, before the Brexit vote, that if according to prophecy, Brexit should have gone through, and if Brexit went through, then Trump should become president. I said this back in the early spring before any of these happened, and both of them came to pass. And
it was Winston Shrout that says everything is going to come together one way or the other, and anybody that stands in the way is going to be taken out.
Well, yeah, and you would have to get rid of two things. Now, according to prophecy, religion is going to go.
Right.
Religion as we know it will be no more.
Right.
What could end religion? Let's see. How about an Islamic war in Europe? How about an Islamic war in the United States?
Well,
we already have
won't there
War
be
crisis.
like one religion?
Well, that's what the Pope is shooting for in preservation for power, to keep the church in power.
Right.
To keep the church in business, he wants to have a one world religion.
Right, and he's trying to show the similarities, in all the, all the religions, and it's like, you know what? No, we've got problems. We've got big problems,
Yeah, and religion is at the heart of it.
Yeah, exactly. No, there's a reason why colonists left Britain and came over here to this great place called America, It's because of religious persecution. We didn't want to have to go through all that stuff.
Well,
so we came over here where we had
church,
freedom to do whatever, we could be Protestant, hell, leave us alone. It doesn't matter what you are, you're here.
Here's the thing. The church creates monarchies, and the United States did not want to wind up under the subject of a monarchy. And so our founding fathers were wise enough to set up a government that separated the teachings of religion from the teachings of government.
Yeah, and you know what? It's break time, and we'll pick up on that too, because there's a little bit going on with the District of Columbia. Okay.
There's a lot going on.
Since you want to talk about the Vatican and stuff like that, all right, where they set up shop and all that. But anyway, listen, we're going to go ahead and take this break. Do what you got to do. This is the Bladder Break. You're listening to Show Us, Don't Tell Us on the L&M Radio Network. We shall be back.
Let me assure you that our priority will remain to ensure stability and security.
In order to ensure the security and continuing
stability, security for Canadians.
Galactic Empire!
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
Attention L&M Radio Network listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the L&M Radio Network by calling 605-562-4203? No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 605-562-4203 to listen to the L&M Radio Network on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Brothers at Arms is not about being militant, though there is a time and place where that is necessary. Brothers at Arms is not about arguing, though there are times where things may get heated. Brothers at Arms is not about who is right or wrong. There are many sides to each issue. Brothers at Arms is about exploring those sides, about dealing with the issues facing us today, about coming together and, through opposing views, understanding the deeper truths that are in the middle. Join Ira Robinson and Joe Long each Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on LateNightInTheMidlands.com as these Brothers at Arms discuss what you need to know. Brothers at Arms, it's about time. Have you been looking for answers? Have you been seeking the truth but can't seem to find it? Late Night in the Midlands has the answers for you. Whether you are interested in the paranormal, aliens and UFOs, alternative health information, or just a little hope and inspiration, we have a show for you. Late Night in the Midlands, The Secret Teachings, Open Eyes, Red Pill Reality Show, Brothers at Arms, and many more shows. All here on the L&M Network for you to listen to at any time that you want. Everything is free to listen to, and though it is not required, we are listener supported, and all donations are deeply appreciated. You will not find shows like these in the mainstream media. Go to latenightinthemidlands.com to listen. The L&M Network, where the truth has no fear.
This is TJ Sanfilippo, host of Navigating the River Styx. Join us each and every Thursday night at midnight here on Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network. Together, we will traverse the forbidden waters of the paranormal, the occult, our hidden history, conspiracies, and things that dwell in the darkness and the deep. Come, grab a seat by the fire away from the night that is closing in. I have tales to tell you. When the clock strikes 12, I invite you to join us here on Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network. Until then, stay safe.
The L&M Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information and subscribe today. Information on becoming an L&M subscriber can be found at the top of latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of latenightinthemidlands.com and help us help you.
Welcome back to Show Us Don't Tell Us on the L&M Radio Network. I am Papa Bear, and of course we've got Peter Kling with us tonight. Skills is still here. Michael Bayhouse dropped out a little bit early tonight, but anyway. So before we did the bladder break, we were talking about where the Vatican likes to set up shop.
Yeah, all roads still lead to Rome, and they have the Vatican has actually controlled the White House for the last 36 years. Every president since Ronald Reagan, right up to Barack Obama, has been a Knight of Malta.
Okay, let's parse this out a little bit.
Okay, let me just make one thing clear.
Sure.
Obama is not a Knight of Malta. However, he does have a letter of endorsement from the Knights of Malta.
Okay.
And it seemed a year ago, last September, him and the Pope had a good old time at the White House.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Pope's teeth almost fell out, huh? Anyway. We'll talk about where the Vatican is setting up shop, okay? This is placed in Maryland, Virginia, called Washington, D.C., okay? It's not a state. It's not one of the United States. It's not considered one of the 50, because it would be 51. It's just not there. According to the Act of 1871, this was actually formed as a separate corporation called the United States. Well, it was a Virginia corporation to begin with, but actually it turned into the United States, which fell into this little piece of area called Washington, D.C., which is actually called the United States. It was chiseled out of a small piece of land from Virginia and Maryland, Virgin Mary, for the Vatican, so that the Vatican could have their control over here in these United States. They are a foreign entity, they're a foreign country, they're foreign from us. They've all sworn allegiance to the bar. The bar is owned by Northern Trust, in case you didn't know that. But they wrote their own manual. It's called The Bulwark of Communism. But yes, as far as where the Vatican is set up, that's their little Vatican City over here in the United States, and it's called the United States, and it's also called Washington, D.C.
Now, for anybody who doubts this, go to Google Maps or Google Earth and go look at the Vatican. And what you see is, from the aerial shot, is you see St. Peter's Basilica.
Yeah.
You see out in front of St. Peter's Basilica the Washington Monument. Oh, wait a minute! It's not the Washington Monument, is it? It's the it's a Egyptian obelisk right smack in the middle of St. Peter's Square. Why is there an Egyptian obelisk in the middle of St. Peter's Square? Odd. And then if we continue to look to the right side, a little bit past that obelisk outside of St. Peter's Square, there is a 5-sided fort, Pentagon Fort, which is sitting there. When we turn around and look at Washington, D.C., what we see is the Capitol building, which looks a lot like St. Peter's Basilica. You've got the Washington Monument, or the Egyptian obelisk, out in front of it.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the other side of the Potomac River, there is the Pentagon,
yeah,
the 5-sided military fort.
Yeah.
So yes, Washington, D.C. has been laid out as a mirror to the Vatican.
Right. And that's basically what it is. It's the Vatican's little Vatican City over here in the United States. Well, it's
Absolutely.
actually known as the United States. It's actually here in America. The United States is a fiction that exists only on paper, or within that 10 square miles, or with its own territories, which would be Guam and American Samoa and Puerto Rico and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. Now, as far as the church is concerned, it does own over 40% of the land mass of planet Earth.
Right.
The next largest landholder is the Queen of England. The Crown holds about 22% of the land mass. So between those two entities, you've got over 60% of the land locked up that's not free. It's under direct rule, either by the Vatican or by the House of Windsor. And interestingly enough, the Queen Elizabeth, is a Dame of Malta, which is the female equivalent of a Knight of Malta.
Or an Earl or a Duke. Yeah.
Here's the one thing I could never, ever understand. Why does an individual require power like that? Why? What do you get out of that? well, manipulation and power. What do you get out of that? I just don't get it. If somebody came to me and said, "You can have all of this power," I would want nothing to do with it. No, I'm good. I'm fine. Just leave me alone. Goodbye. Have a nice day. Nothing to see here. See ya. I don't get it.
Well, it goes all the way back to the Anunnaki. It goes back to off-planet entities that are controlling this planet. And by aligning themselves with these off-planet entities, these people amassed large fortunes.
So you're pretty much groomed into that.
Yeah, that's why they follow the bloodlines.
Yeah.
Every president of the United States, except for Martin Van Buren, has been a cousin of every other president.
Yeah.
How does that happen if they're not following the bloodlines? Even Obama is a cousin.
Happens by injection.
Well,
now Trump might not be. I don't know about Trump. I don't believe he is a cousin, but he's certainly not a Knight of Malta. And so here we've seen with this election, the Vatican has lost its grip on the White House. No longer has control over the White House. But not only that, the globalist agenda, which the Pope wrote back in October of 2013, which became the post-2015 development agenda, that no longer has any traction in this country.
Yeah, well,
because
they did the motu propria. They gave them 3 years to clean up their act, and they still haven't done it. It's time. It's time.
Well, yeah, it is time. And when we go back and look at the prophecies surrounding this, this is why this is important while we're covering it. Pope, this goes back to something I said in October 2010, and I had no reason for saying it. I got angry at a New Age person talking about 10-10-10. And I told him, I said the dates that we have to watch out for are 3/13/13 and 4/14/14, and I said it more out of anger. He was posting a bunch of this New Age stuff on my Facebook page, and I just was like, okay, I had enough of it. And I just zapped with that. And I said, I didn't have any substance for saying it. Well, I could never find anything about the 3/13 date, but on the 4/14/2014 started the Tetrad blood moons. Now, the interesting thing that happens on 3/13/13 is that the world gets its first Jesuit pope. It's an anomaly.
Right.
Jesuits aren't supposed to be popes.
Right.
Not my rule.
Black pope.
Well, yeah, the Jesuits have the black pope, but now we're talking about the pope of the whole church, not the head of the Jesuit order.
Right.
And here we've got a Jesuit, which is, I guess you would call it the white pope. He's heading the whole church, and Jesuits are not supposed to hold that office.
Right.
So now that starts the 13th of March 2013.
Yeah.
When we look at what the Pope did, has done substantially over this time period, the two things that he's done is, number one, he's attacked the monetary system.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that he basically did, and I think that surprised the world when in May of 2013 he came out and he just gave he condemned the monetary system, the way that it's set up. And then he did the same thing again in September of 2013. The other thing that he did was started cleaning up the Vatican Bank. He dumped, I forgot, a boatload of bishops out of the bank.
Yeah, well, they stopped dealing with cash too.
Well, they
had stopped. They couldn't launder money anymore.
Yeah, that was basically it. But at the same time, I believe it was in July of 2013, the Pope issued a decree, an apostolic decree, which basically said that anybody who doesn't adhere to church law will be dealt with to the fullest extent, fullest extent of the law. He also, while he didn't say the same thing about child molesters in the church, he said that all child molesters would be excommunicated.
Right.
So, he did at least take a stand there.
Yeah, at least he didn't, separate the church.
Yeah, pretty much. Not that he condemned what was going on, as I said, per se, but it was he just said, if you're caught, you're out.
Yeah, he made it known that he's not backing him up. Yeah.
Now the interesting thing, when we, and I don't have an argument with that. It seems like these are all positive things. In October of 2013, October 2nd, he issued his 41-page treatise on rehabilitating the Earth, the way that the system runs on this planet. And that's why that treatise became basically the post-2015 development agenda. Yeah. That's why the Pope came to the United States and was standing in America's holy places and then speaking before the United Nations, blessing their efforts to come to agreements on the post-2015 development agenda.
Right.
So in that agenda is to end poverty, and the way that they want to end poverty is essentially to take from not the rich, because the rich are controlling what's going on, they're running the show, but to take from the middle class and give it to the poor, kind of like the reverse of Robin Hood. Of course, they get their vig along the way, so they get their percentage. Now,
Right.
from the time that the Pope came to power to this last October has been 3.5 years. When we look at the prophecy in Revelation 11, it gives us 2 time periods, both equaling 3.5 years. The first time period is set for the measuring. It's John says he's given a reed and told to measure the temple. He measures the most holy and the holy. So if the Pope is trying to carry this out, that reed or that rod was a measuring instrument, and if he to measure to, and he was told to, John was told to measure it to make sure it was up to standard, make sure it was correct.
Right.
But he was told, as far as the courtyard, don't measure the courtyard, because it was going to be given to the nations for 3.5 years, or 1,260 days.
Right.
So you have these 2 time periods, which you have the measuring of the temple. Make sure your house is in order. Make sure everything's up to measurement, up to specification. And then a time period for the nations essentially to trample down the courtyard of the temple. Now, here's the thing. Only Jews were allowed in the courtyard. Having the nations in the courtyard would be an abomination.
Right. Yeah.
But the courtyard of the temple is trampled down. So what exactly does that mean? Well, it's given to the nations, so the nations take over, and while they don't attack the church directly, those within the courtyard come under attack. Or those who will follow the words of Jesus, or who would be following the law, come under attack by the nations. So that's the time period that we've entered now, is we are in the second half of this 7-year time period, the Great Tribulation as it's called. And the church losing control or losing dominion or power over the White House is significant, because not only did it lose power over the White House, but its globalist agenda for the United States has come to an end.
Right.
Or at least to an extent. And that's why you've got all these globalists, which we call democratic leftists. I don't think democracy or the Democratic Party has any realization what's actually going on. Or I should say the people that support the Democratic Party, and probably the people in the Republican Party don't, because they've capitulated for the last 8 years to Obama's whims.
Right.
And everything that Obama did was to destroy America and set up a world that is at war. Yeah. He's caused the biggest rift in this country since, well, actually, I guess since you have to go back to the days of the civil rights movement back during the Johnson administration, or the Kennedy and Johnson administrations. But we never saw race riots. We never, people had respect for police back then, even if they were being brutalized by the police.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's okay, but come on. We've got cops killing people. I mean, people that's being caught on cell phone, and they're doing so in cold blood. And then you got people killing cops.
Yeah.
It's like, what in the world is going on here?
Welcome to America.
Something else is that was reported. I thought that, where reporters now are trying to suss out these Islamic communities, saying, Islam is a peaceful religion. It maybe used to be at one time. Nobody makes war. When we look at individuals, there's only been very few people that I've ever met traveling around the world that I can honestly say I didn't care for.
Right.
Most people that I've met, I've become friends with, and it didn't make any difference what their political opinion was, or what the color of their skin was, or their religion. They were good people. They were nice, friendly, enjoyable people to be around.
Right.
So when we look on a one-on-one basis, we have this camaraderie that we can build with anybody. I don't care what their color of the skin is, unless you've been raised or extremely prejudiced, you can find good in everybody. So where's the evil come in? It comes in from the governments and from religion, the two biggest control factors on the planet. And if you've got religion controlling the governments, now you got one big control factor. So when we get into Revelation 17 and 18, the governments turn on religion.
Right.
You got 2 chapters of Revelation that are totally dedicated to the destruction of Babylon the Great, this harlot which has caused the deaths of many, God's people, the prophets and the innocent ones.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, drinks their blood.
Right.
And that's exactly, literally, what's going on. All these big power brokers, and we you look at, if Hillary Clinton would have become president, that would have put Bill Clinton back in the White House, who's a Knight of Malta. That would have given the church at least an extension on their control over the United States. But if religion's going to fall, they have to lose their control.
Right.
And that's exactly what we see going on. Religion, or the church has lost its control over the White House. Not just the White House, but the next 4 years in America, Trump's plan is to put us back online, to put the working class, the middle class back to work, to start making money, to bring money into the country, not to make us more poor than we already are or have become under the Obama administration, but to actually put money back in the pockets of America.
Right.
So we look at that and we say, okay, that sounds like a great idea. So why is there so much protest over it?
Right.
Yeah. So you got these people that are so far to the left. Hollywood, we know, is totally dedicated to Satanism. You don't believe that? Go watch a Miley Cyrus video.
Yeah, no kidding, no.
Go watch Beyonce. Maybe you get a chance to see her transform from the person she is into the demon that possesses her. Or it's more than likely an archon, though.
Right.
Well, here's one to run by it, and Pop and I glanced in regards to the subject, in regards to musicians that have so-called sold themselves down the road. Now, if you know anything about that, and I don't, I mean, how do they? Because I can name off a few guys that have done it. I mean, how do you say, hey, look, I want to be popular, I want a boatload of money, and how do I sell myself down the road to achieve that in this lifetime?
Yeah.
Huh? Remember this conversation? And I was dying to ask Peter this, and I don't know if he has answers to it, but there you have it.
There's a method to the madness. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'm sure.
First of all, you have to be talented. You have to be talented enough for them to recognize you. Or, you take Charlie Sheen, for instance. You got a third-generation actor there. So, and it is somebody that was given everything and has totally destroyed their lives through drugs.
Right.
But anyway.
Well, the two folks that I'm aware of, talented, all right, survey says. So I'm not, Pete, I'm not getting it.
Well,
no talent.
Yeah. Here's the way that it's supposed to happen, especially within the music industry, and this might be reasons why Michael Jackson and Prince are both dead. Maybe same thing with David Bowie. Who knows? But when they get to that point of becoming stars, before they get to that point, actually, they're put in a lot of compromising positions. I understand you can pretty much count on a homosexual encounter with some producer somewhere, and more than likely it'll be filmed and they'll use it as blackmail against you. But you also you start to come under their control, and people, it all depends on how much money you want. If you were making $20,000 a year, now all of a sudden you got some Hollywood producer that says, hey, we'll give you $100,000 a month. How much are you willing to sell your soul for? But it goes further than that, because once they start the indoctrination through compromising sexual positions or situations, and they get you on tape, now they're under your you're under their control. And so you want more money, do more things. And then you're indoctrinated into essentially a position where you have to wind up signing a contract where you literally sell your soul to the devil. And that's why you see all the different hand signs and symbols that a lot of the more modern singers are holding up. You know, they hold up their hands, make a little pyramid with their fingers and first fingers and thumbs. They cover an eye to show that they're doing the Illuminati's bidding. And as long as they're carrying out and you know, they don't write. You know, back in the 60s, most bands wrote their own music. It's an industry. It's an industry. And as long as you aren't upsetting the apple cart and making them money and influencing the next generation, they are more than happy to turn around and pay your bills and make you rich and make you famous. But the more rich and the more famous you become, the more they control your life. And if you don't go along with them, well, guess what happens? You're an out-of-work actor. Sorry, we don't need you anymore. And then before you know it, you wind up like Janis Joplin or Jimi Hendrix or one of my favorite singers, his name slips me, Jim Morrison from The Doors. Interestingly enough, Jim Morrison's father was an admiral.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is where the age 27 drops into.
Expand.
That's a key age, man. Look at Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison. I don't know what it is. Age 27.
They get to a certain point. Now maybe this person becomes part of a sacrifice, or maybe they go down to it's funny in a peculiar way. And folks, the book that I've got out right now is Letters to Earth. You Can Survive. I'm sorry. Let me go back because we had changed publishers, and we also did a name change. Letters to Earth. The Future is Yours. You can find it on Amazon.com or order it through your bookstore. It's out in a few different places. Neely Publishing is my publisher, and they did an excellent job. But we changed the name of it because it told a great purpose for the future. It explains most of the stuff that we've talked about this evening. Now, when we get to this point, and boy, I may have jumped off track here. Barry, what was your last question here? Before I did a little commercial for myself.
Go ahead, man.
Still with us, Barry? Well, we'll pick it back up. We'll pick it back up with the actors. Go ahead. Of control and who can be controlled by whom, and it goes right up a ladder, and it always takes us to the same place: politics and religion, and then after that, aliens.
Yeah.
Or some sort of archonic life form. And people will say, oh, well, aliens, not all aliens are bad. Hey, if you're in touch with them today and it's not your guardian angel, they're part of the rebellion.
Yeah.
There are interdimensional life forms that we're dealing with. These are living creatures. They can inhabit anything, and they can coexist right within our own human body with our own consciousness and soul. And at the higher levels, that is exactly what they do. So here's an interesting thing. Let's say you go and you do you're a musician, or you're an actor, or somebody famous, and you want to live the life. Guess what? There's this life form that is willing to cohabitate with you in the same human vessel in which we habitate, and they get to experience your life. They get to experience life in the flesh as it's happening.
All right, I hear you.
And so now that's why you have these singers that have turned around. I guess Beyonce was the first one, but somebody else came right out after that. I don't follow the latest.
Well, how do you know when you accept that? It's like, well, is this really unfolding? Well, is it going to catapult me? Okay, I'm game, you know?
Yeah.
Well, take a look at Miley Cyrus.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, now
How
I
long
remember 20 years ago, or what, about 15, 20 years ago, I used to watch her, my kids used to watch her on the Disney Channel.
Yeah, along with my kids. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now, I just saw a picture of her the other day. Somebody posted, and I can't believe that they actually posted it, but here's Miley, and she's on stage, and she's got fake breasts over her breasts, but they look nude, and she's got this huge penis strapped on. What the hell is this?
Woohoo.
Why would you do that? Why would you go to that extreme? And everybody in the audience thinks that this is great.
Why have you lost your mind?
She's preparing for the girls' sleepover. I mean,
she's got like at least a 2-foot phallus strapped on her. And who dreamt up this costume? Who's influencing our children or the children of today? Not just young children, you know.
Yeah.
Teenagers, people in their early 20s thinks that this is great.
Well,
what happened to the morality?
Right. Well, you know, my kids that grew up watching her are old enough to say.
Gentlemen.
Well, my kids are old enough to say, "Are you kidding me?" You know, thank God. Are you really? Yeah. Get out of here with that.
What happened to ladies and gentlemen? They're
exactly.
They're
gone. Guys and gals.
Sure. You know, it's like a man shakes a woman's hand like you shake a lady's hand, and they look at you and say, "Hey, isn't that the Freemason handshake?" It's like, get the hell out of here with that.
That is one thing my father could never understand. When my father would shake a man's hand, he shakes a hand like a fish. I remember the old man told me that. He hated that, man. You want to shake a hand? My old man, World War II vet, you shake a hand, baby.
You shake a hand like you mean it.
Absolutely. It's you know, I grew up with that same mentality. You shake a hand, you know, firm handshake.
Well, yeah.
But I can remember back to the first time that I heard that expression. A friend of mine, I grew up in a lot of different neighborhoods, but a friend of mine had parents who were famous musicians. This is back in the 60s. I don't know if you guys recall Ferranti and Teicher. They were. Well, I went to school with their son, and so I would be over. I actually went to a recording. They were recording one of their albums, and I went down to New York City for a recording session with them one evening, and my friends, Mrs. Teicher, made comment about somebody whose hand she shook, and she said, you know, he really had a nice handshake. She said, I hate when somebody hands me a dead fish.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
I hate that. With me. I hate that from a man, you know, when you shake a man's hand. It's like, come on, get a grip, will you?
Yeah, well, the guy with the first, longest, tightest grip wins. Because
really.
You shake a man's hand hard.
Oh, well, man, yeah, you do, but it's not. It's not a squeeze. It's not a squeeze contest.
Ouch! Ouchie! Ouchie!
It's not a forearm test or a contest or anything like that. It's a firm handshake. It's an honest handshake.
You'll know. No, it's not dominance. You'll know.
Yeah.
There's I'm thinking just a recent. Well, I say recently, a few months ago, we were looking at having somebody come in and do tree work on the land. Actually, clear portions of the land that we have up Main off. And there's a logging company, family-owned logging company that their son came up. He was probably early 30s, and big boy.
Yeah.
I shook his hand, and I was like a kid, you know.
Yeah, right.
One can only imagine the rest of this story, but go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, this guy manhandled chainsaws probably since he was big enough to pick one up, and he had a handshake and a big hand to go with it. I mean, it was like he could almost wrap his hand right around my hand like I was a child.
Yeah, it's like, I'd shake your hand, but I can't get my hand around yours.
Yeah, but, you know, that's back when a handshake meant something.
Yeah.
And still today, you know, we talk about this, and it seems like we may have gotten off a track here a little bit, but I'm going to bring it right back around. You see, between the three of us, we could shake hands with each other, and we could come to an agreement, and we would stick by what we said.
That's right. Your word is your bond.
Yeah, but that is not the way that it happens in the world anymore. A handshake means nothing, and so we're handed a bunch of dead fish, or maybe get a Masonic handshake and don't know it. I don't know what to say about that. But the whole world is in a corrupt state, and there's several big problems that we aren't even aware of. Artificial intelligence is one of them. The more you plug into a computer or a smartphone, the more artificially intelligent you become.
Robotics are coming in. Let me tell you, when they're creating food from nothing, you know, it's going to be one of those push the button and it materializes. And you got some sort of gelatin, pudding, lumpy type of stuff in a dish. Here are your nutrients. Okay? This is what your body needs based on your urine analysis.
Soil and
oh yeah, every time you go to the John, you get your urine analyzed, you know, and it's like, we know who you are, we know what you need for vitamins, this is your next meal, you know.
Well, you recall the day when you had gentlemen's agreement, all right? Now the handshake is solidification. That's positive confirmation.
Yeah.
Period. Done.
Yeah.
Supposedly,
you know, in this great state we call Maine, oral agreements are binding. All right, never mind the handshake. Oral agreements are binding. So as long as you got a witness, I mean, there you have it. You know what I mean? Other than that, it comes back to the same thing you find in every courtroom: hearsay. So
now, that is a mode that we are actually going to get back to.
Yeah.
Where our word means something, and it all starts right now. You see, there's a very simple rule. Some people will call it karma, but real karma is what you do in this life, you will have to pay for essentially in the next life. So karma doesn't come back to you, or if it does, you know, people say, "Oh, that's karma coming back to me." You know, you did something bad to somebody, and then all of a sudden something bad happened to you. Well, that's all fine and good, but the universe runs by a different set of rules. There's universal law, and universal law.
Peter, I'm dying to hear this in regards to karma, because I have issues with that. Go ahead.
Okay, universal law says something much different. And Jesus himself said this. Jesus said, "Cast your bread upon the waters and don't worry about it, because they'll come back to you tenfold."
Yeah.
So if we are doing positive things, guess what happens? We get those positive things back. If we're always doing positive things for people, even when we're taken advantage of.
Not in this lifetime.
Well, this is something that's going to have to start.
Yeah. See, boy, why? Because you screwed up ahead of time.
Yeah.
Get out of here with
Oh, that's what it was in a past life. I'm paying for a past life.
Well,
yeah.
You're unaware of that crap, and you're paying a price.
I
now,
must have been one wealthy son of a gun, let me tell you. And popular.
Right. According to Peter, that's what's currently going on.
In a past life, I was Hugh Hefner. Yeah.
You see, what's happening now in the life that we're experiencing, and here's the great thing about free will. We can do whatever we want to do. We can choose. It's our choice.
Free Willy. Yeah.
Now, here's where that alpha. You remember we talked about alpha earlier?
Yeah.
The Earth is being beta tested, so we have this fight or flight thing.
Right.
When we move into alpha, the brain slows down from and operates between 8 and 12 hertz per second.
Okay.
And we are in a state of meditation. When we pray, we are in alpha. When we meditate, we are in alpha. When we make love, we are in alpha. And we like to be in alpha because it's not stressful. It's very at ease. But that one key thing, we experience love in alpha. We don't experience it in beta.
Right.
And our future depends on really two things.
Unless you get into some really aggressive sex. Fight or flight, you know. Oops. Yeah.
The first
wait a minute. This is immigrant sex. Okay.
Jeez.
Yeah.
The first thing that it depends on is the greatest commandment. What Jesus said was the greatest commandment, and that was to love Yahweh our God with our whole heart, soul, and mind, and to love our neighbor as we do ourselves. Now, just that very act, just following that, takes us out of beta and puts us into a state of alpha.
Yeah.
Gee, imagine that. Once you're out of beta, you're not going to fight.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean you can't protect yourself.
It's flight, baby.
No, that's a beta. Fight or flight.
It's flight.
Yeah, there are so many radio programs on the internet now that all deal with, good Christian, you got to get out and, arm yourself and get ready for this change that we're going to have. And it's like, holy mackerel, they're getting ready for war.
Yeah,
What kind of Christian radio station is this?
Yeah. Trade your jacket. Trade your jacket for a gun or some crap. I don't know.
You know what's so terribly confusing is the fact that, and Papa Bear is not going to disagree with us. I mean, good heavens. Okay, I have my family. You want to barter? Fantastic. I have my property. You have your property. Let's do a little bartering, and we're going to go.
Tangible assets.
That's very But then again, you have these jackasses. I gotta have it all. I'm not happy unless I have it all. Are you kidding me? What's the problem, man? Just move along. I have my dwelling. You have your dwelling. And we move along.
Yeah, it's like
what's the drive behind people stating that they need everything, including your stuff? You're not happy with that? What's the matter with you, man?
Yeah, right. Like how much food can I get for my snowblower?
Yeah, right. Well, how much money is too much money to make? Cut it out.
Yeah.
Well, you see, in this system, you can never make too much money. It's like having too much fun. But here's something that I recognized really pretty quickly. When we moved up off grid.
All right. I'm dying to hear this.
Life, right. I have to tell you, the first thing, I had never felt so free in my life.
All right.
Truly, I really have never felt so free in my life.
Oh.
But at that same point, life was reduced to something very interesting. Shelter, water, and food.
Yep.
Food, water, and shelter.
Bare essentials.
Yeah, that's what it came down to. We were working on a project. We had I still remember the first day we had running water into where we had our camper set up.
Yes.
Yeah, it was cold running water, but at least we didn't have to go drive to the spring to go pick up water or go down to the creek to wash up, which was.
It's like the first time you found your name in the phone book, right?
Yeah.
No, it's like that's like hitting the lottery, man.
Yeah, you could actually take a real shower now.
Right.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that was one of the first things I said. I told my son, I said, that's the first time I've taken a shower like a man. Because we were using one of these solar bags, and by the time the end of the day is, we wind up heating up water, pouring it in the bag, hanging it up, and then standing underneath it with it dribbling on you. It was miserable.
Yeah.
But you do what you got to do. So we were carrying out a task there, but our task depended on making sure we had enough food to eat so we can do the work that we needed to do, having a place to stay, and having water. And toward the end, the last couple of weeks that we were up there, the last 2 weeks, we lost the water 3 times. It froze up on us. Because we got the pipe put in, but it's not buried underground.
That's not good.
No, and we didn't have the house near built, so we had to go back to that same basic thing.
I hope you drained that pipe before you left.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Busted pipes, yep.
It's plastic pipe. Chances of it, yeah, it's not going to break too easily. But yeah, we did drain it and take the pressure off it. So
very good.
Yep, that's all taken care of. But when we live, the closer we get to a city, the more complicated our lives become. And everybody, we're all told we need to have that house, that picket fence, the 2 cars in the garage, the boat, the snowmobile, the ATV, and everything else that goes along with it, including all the bills, and a more complicated life.
You don't need that.
No, not to survive. I mean, it's nice to have good. Here's the other side of that coin. We did have a solar panel. You got to have more solar panels. But I was looking at what I had with me that took electricity. And before I left, I took all the things that, I took my fishing poles. I took a bunch of books to read. I took a portable DVD player, which I didn't watch for the first 3 months that we were up there. Eventually, I did wind up watching it for a little bit, a couple of nights. But the majority of electric things were left behind because we didn't work, and I have a whole lot of electric up there, only what we could produce.
I'll tell you what, Peter, and that's a stress relief, be honest with you, leaving all that behind you.
Well, you know what? We didn't have, when you're in your house, it's all full of wires. So you've got all the electric magnetic pulses going through your wires. We've got AC. Then we put in a Wi-Fi system, so now you got Wi-Fi going through the house. And we probably live close enough to a cell phone tower, so because we all have cell phones now, and so bang, you got the radiation coming in from your cell phone tower. And it's not just one set of antennas on a cell phone tower, it's a bunch of antennas on a cell phone tower, so you got plenty of radio frequency transmission going through the air that we're bombarded with. And then we go to a Wi-Fi hotspot and get even more. And so it never ends. We find ourselves in this current, literally within the current of electric field wherever we go.
You're trapped.
Yeah. Out on the side of a mountain up in the middle of nowhere, you don't have that. Yeah, you want to talk about a peaceful, easy feeling. My goodness.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Abso-freaking-lutely,
Now,
I believe it.
how were you making power up there?
I picked, before we headed off the grid, I bought the most advanced solar panel that I could find, which was a single panel which produces 275 watts of electric and a battery bank. That needs to be upgraded to about 6 solar panels and a much bigger battery bank.
Right.
But that, and we also, naturally, we had a generator to run the equipment that we needed to for the building process.
Yeah.
So we would basically be charging up batteries, or we'd run the generator. Typically, we either use we have a converter on the batteries to switch it over to 120, so we could at least have an electric coffee maker and coffee grinder. You got to have your priorities.
Right. Yeah. So you had a power inverter also.
No hair dryer, absolutely not. Well, actually,
1,500 watts. Yeah. Okay.
Actually, believe it or not, we did have a hair dryer, but we didn't use it to dry our hair.
Okay.
Well, if you're gonna heat the joint, that's one thing. It's like, hey, baby, if you want to blow dry your hair, do it right here, right now, in front of 4 of us.
They use it to harden the cement. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I actually, it came in handy because we were running into a real moisture problem with with condensation. We'd be out of the trailer all day and then come back, and as the temperatures were getting colder, you'd heat the trailer up, and then you'd have a moisture buildup on the windows. So we double sealed the windows and with plastic, and used the hair dryer to heat seal it, dry up the windows and heat seal it.
Right.
So that was it as far as the hair dryer goes. But it's interesting. Your whole attitude changes.
Yeah.
And
for the good.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you stepped up.
Oh, absolutely.
I can imagine. It's like you get rid of all this extra bull crap that you're currently used to in your lifetime, and it's like, oh man, it's tough, but it's like you get rid of stress. Bottom line. Oh
yeah. Here's one of the things, my daily routine. I get up in the morning, I turn on the TV and typically go to one of the financial stations, watch the markets. Follow the money, folks. Follow the money.
Yeah.
I don't care, I don't care what any of the news stations say. When the markets go up, down, or sideways, whatever the case might be, what I have found is that the reporters on financial networks will slip up every once in a while, and all of a sudden they'll make a comment, and then they'll catch they'll catch themselves in the middle of it, and they have a good idea on what's going on in this world, but they're not allowed to talk about it.
Right.
So every once in a while they'll slip up, and then they catch themselves. But you got to follow the money. Mm-hmm. Because when the system collapses, you'll see it in the money first. But up there, I didn't bring a TV. So typically at home, before I got off the grid, I'd turn on the TV in the morning, go to the financial station, open up my computer, turn that on, start my research on whatever I was doing, or go to Facebook and see what was being posted, and go post things there. And so I was keeping right up with everything that was going on in the world, being constantly bombarded with this information.
Yeah.
That didn't make a damn bit of difference when I was living off the grid.
No.
I'd hear something on NPR, and I'd make a comment to my son, who, we were working together, and he'd say, "Pops, it doesn't make any difference." And I'd say, "Well, I guess you're right."
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference in my life. I know what I got to do tomorrow when we get up, and I know what and the next day and the next day. I know what I'm going to do up there for the next 5 years.
Right.
Here, I don't have a clue. Being back in civilization, it's like
exactly.
Yeah,
all right, Peter. Put in a plug for your book, website information, all that good stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Again, the book is Letters to Earth. The future is yours, and it really is ours. All we have to do is comprehend the world that's around us in which we live and plan accordingly. If you don't have a plan, you're in trouble. Executing the plan, it takes some work. We had a plan to get up off the grid. It's been a long time coming. We finally made that move. We didn't get enough accomplished, so we're going back and going to finish it up. We've got a plan for our future based on the information which I know. At the very, very least, we need to have a plan. And this book will help you understand what we're facing and what our future actually is. And we do have a fantastic future, but we're going to have to get rid of all of this garbage which is controlling this earth. So yes, Letters to Earth, the future is yours. The website is www.peterkling.com. I've got a bunch of room left on Facebook, so you can join me on Facebook. Follow me there. I generally post something every day, if not several things. So I will keep on doing that until we're back off the grid in another few months, and then even try to get on after that. So follow me. Keep up with this. Create your own future. We have that God-given ability, and we don't have to be limited by the machinations of this system in which we live. We don't have to live under these set of rules.
Do you see a mass extermination event coming up?
Yeah, that's exactly what Armageddon is going to wind up being, or the paradigm shift is going to wind up being.
Okay.
And Barry, just shut off the lights. kill the electric for a year,
Yeah.
and there'll be a mass extermination of people killing each other.
You got that right. You got that.
You know,
right.
it doesn't have to be a cosmic event. It doesn't have to be extraterrestrials. It doesn't have to be some sort of earth-shaking event. All we have to do is shut the lights off on Earth, kill the electric.
Right. There you go.
So
you're right.
That's it.
You're right. Mass
Yeah.
hysteria. Clean off the shelves. Clean out your neighbors. Take out whoever it takes to take out. Because you're looking out for your family, right? That's a good excuse. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you see, the inner cities are going to become death traps. Urban areas are going to become death traps.
Yeah.
Because there's only 3 days of food in the production line.
Right.
Used to be that they had huge warehouses. They'd make up a pile of food, store it in the warehouses, and then it gets shipped to the distributors, and the distributor ships it to the grocery store.
Well, store your dry food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now there's if the electric went out tomorrow, Kraft macaroni and cheese would not be made tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so you'd only have 3 days of Kraft macaroni and cheese in the system.
Right. All right, Peter. Good enough. Thank you very much for being with us. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Look forward to coming back and chatting again. We live in fantastic times here. There's no doubt about that. The future is ours. All we have to do is create it.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Peter. Skills.
My pleasure. Love and blessings to all.
Take care, man. Skills. Close up, man.
Good heavens, Peter, don't go nowhere. We'll hang out for a bit, hopefully. Anyways.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Guys and gals.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and for listening to our show. Guys and gals out there, L&M Radio, man, please subscribe if you can, because, like I mentioned, you're not going to find these archives in a library anywhere, or perhaps even online. Subscribe in. Get a boatload of archives and you'll be good to go. Otherwise, there you have it. Thanks for listening, and we're going to wrap this up. It's all you, Papa.
All right, man. All right. You've been listening to Show Us, Don't Tell Us on the L&M Radio Network. I'm Papa Bear. Don't forget, come on over to the website, latenightinthemidlands.com or lnmradionetwork.com. Chat and listen. Click on the subscribe button if you can't afford a subscription. You know, a small donation. Anything you can do helps. Keep us on the air so we can, I don't know, entertain you or something. Anyway, have a great night. Take care, people. We'll see you again next week.